Before we begin this video, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to add a couple of things, then we're going to move on. First things first, this is over a year old. The recording has been sitting / reaction on my hard drive for over a year. Apologies on that. Number two, you will see throughout the video as I'm learning how to do these things better. So apologies for the roughness of the entire thing. Future videos will not be as longer, but there will be longer story explanation videos and whatnot. It might include face cam because I was struggling a little bit on the B-rolls for some of that. So any support is 100% appreciated. This took me way too long, but it was one of the most enjoyable videos I've ever edited on the channel. Thank you so much once again for all the love and support. Our 100K journey continues. Let's get back to the video.
All it takes is one bad day for the course of your life to be changed forever and taken down a very dark path. Sarah Dillinger's desperate struggle to survive the mean streets of 1911 New York City leads to disaster and deadly consequences. Meanwhile, Dr. John Wilson finds out that there is such a thing as being in the wrong place at the wrong time after taking a trip to an Argentina casino in 1985. Each of them hope for a miracle to escape their impossible situation, but miracles have a price, and the price may be more than they can bear. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Dark Deception, first ever book, The Malak Archives House of Mischief. Now, as requested by y'all, this is gonna be an hour-long video. I don't know how long this is gonna be, but I've combined everything, all the two stories, including the intros for each of those stories and my thoughts and everything in this video. So the way I've done it is that each chapter, I have read each chapter, and quickly after that I have recorded my thoughts and summarization of it. That way I will kind of sort of be reading and experiencing at the same time as y'all. So when I'm telling you about the first chapter's summary, right, or if I'm saying my thoughts about the first chapter, remember, the one that you're listening, that's SmackNPie, he don't know what's about to happen in chapter 2. That thing that I might have complained about in chapter 1 might be explained or fixed in chapter 2. So this is something that I've kind of done for this one. The book is thick, there's so much content here, and right off the back, ladies and gentlemen, a point that I mentioned in my last video, it was explained, ladies and gentlemen. So these are Malak archives. However, Malak here starts by greeting the mortals. So you would think, since these are archives, it would be for people in the dark realm. When I say people, I don't mean mortals, I mean demons and monsters. But it kind of makes sense because here, Malak greets us, confirms that he's a demon, but then he says, quote, "I'm also a collector and curator of mortal souls." We know that, but he actually goes on to explain that we know he's a businessman and he has spent eons ripping souls from countless mortals and tasting their despair. Something Beers echoed in the beginning of Dark Deception chapter 1. Malak here says the same thing. He says weaker souls are shattered into shards. Soul shards, the one that we collect, the proper one. But then this is the most important point. While stronger souls are transformed into monsters to serve my ambitions. I told y'all, ladies and gentlemen, that mortal puppet topic that I mentioned in the last video, I wasn't smoking that out of my butt. It had a meaning, and now it is confirmed here, ladies and gentlemen. So the Lucky the Rabbit, Puppet King, Dark Star, all of these monsters, yeah. So we're going to talk about it in a separate video, connecting all this. He loves their eternal suffering, feeding off their guilt, hopelessness. Then he also sets up this book and its stories quite well. He said, "I'm a businessman, bro. I will cut a deal because every soul has a price." Now, here's a small Easter egg. There have been those that have feared me and those that have tried to defy me, and even precious few who have dared to try to cheat me. He's talking about Beers here, ladies and gentlemen. Soon after, there will be an archive where Doug Hauser, aka us, the player, will make an Easter egg. So our story begins in the chilly and foggy streets of New York. Yes, we are branching out of the dark realm. We're going into the real world. This book gives us a sneaky peeky, actually it literally takes us outside in the real world. Now, just before we actually start the story, I want to say one thing about the timeline. Now here they do mention 1911 New York, right? But I do want to mention that timeline is not as simple in the Dark Deception universe, specifically Dark Realm, because there are fragments of time that are captured and then added into the Dark Realm. For example, Beers, You know, here she is from the past. But you look at Doug Hauser. In the real world, he is old in coma in hospital, but here he's young. So just giving a basic example that's like very basic of the basics. So just because 1911, just because 80s, just because early 1800s maybe, that doesn't matter, because in the beginning of the book, Malak has mentioned eons, so time is a bit different in the Dark Realm. Vince also mentioned that they want to make this game timeless, so time doesn't flow in the Dark Realm the way it does for us. Anyways, let's move on. So our main character, Sarah Dillinger, ladies and gentlemen, is walking in the streets. The book mentions how she's wearing these torn clothes, torn jeans and whatnot, and it's very chilly. She's snuggling or trying to snuggle into her thin coat. The book mentions that she's homeless. The book mentions how she's going around the survival mode because not only she's homeless, she is an orphan. The nuns from the orphanage back in the day thought that maybe an immigrant migrated here to New York and had big dreams, found herself a man, got herself pregnant. Out came Sarah. That is a horrible way to put it. But the nuns suspected that because the husband was then out of the picture, either he abandoned the woman, was left alone with the child, and that's why she abandoned her, or whatever the case may be, they think because the husband wasn't there to support the kid, hence they suspect that, you know, she's abandoned. And Sarah doesn't know much about her past anyway. All she knows that she's been in an orphanage. Now, I say she's homeless now. Why she is in it at the orphanage? Because she's been through multiple foster families. He was, according to the nuns at the orphanage, troubled teen. There's a nun at the orphanage, Sister Denise. She's gone through multiple foster families, but every time she would go to these families, she would be then returned by those families. Why? Well, because it's not that Sarah was causing them trouble, they were literally using and abusing Sarah, because back in the day, child labor was such a nasty thing. It was very, very common. So those families would adopt Sarah and then use her as a child labor, not to mention over the mental and physical abuse and whatnot. But the key point in all of this is that whilst she was being used as child labor, basic surviving was still a problem, even in those foster families. Now, the book does mention just a little bit of these foster families, but they don't go much into this. I wish they kind of did. But anyways, the most recent one, this was a family of 6. So already she was struggling, working a lot, doing all the labor, sewing, taking all the nuts from the things, and it was just a nasty, insane labor work. Here at the time we are following Sarah, she's 16 years old, but when she was with the foster families, imagine how young she would be. So using that, bro, that's crazy to me. Anyways, this was a family of 6. She was sleeping on the floor, and the most important thing was hunger. She needed food to literally survive, and she grabbed herself some nuts from the family, and that's where they caught her. Now, instead of sending her back to the orphanage like the other families did, they ended up started accusing her, and they were gonna go to the next level of abusing. But at that point, she was like, that's it, bro. No more foster families. I am giving up the dream of looking for these foster families. Nobody's out there gonna care for me. I'm gonna go back to orphanage. The same cycle is gonna repeat. She ran away, and that's the best thing for her at that time, because Sister Denise was like, that's it, bro, nobody's gonna take you. So Sister Denise was 100% at fault, but now Sarah Dillinger out on her own, and now we're in the present day. That was a few weeks back, that was actually a few days back, and now we are following Sarah Dillinger. So she's in the streets, surviving, trying to go day by day, sleeping on the streets, trying to beg for some coins so that she can eat a meal per day, but she hadn't eaten for days at this point. So she's trying to look for food, and comes a smell, fresh, warm smell of bread and pastries from this bakery called Harold and Sons. Now, I wouldn't have mentioned this if I didn't think this would be important. I feel like Harold and Sons bakery might be a small shop in the mall in chapter 5. I think this might connect to that, because Vince did say there will be some Easter eggs in chapter 5 from the book, so we might actually see that. Anyways, so she's like, yes, I need this. That smell entices her. She sees a woman coming out of the bakery shop with pastries and bread, warm, fresh bread. She's like, that's it, bro, I need this. And so she makes a plan. She's like, I'm gonna run into this lady. She's gonna drop her pastries and bread. I'm just gonna grab one bread. I'm gonna run, and that would be a good enough meal for me to survive for the day. So she sees this woman talking to this man, one of the bakers, right? And so she's anxious. She was like, when are they gonna stop talking so I can finally get the thing? So as soon as they stop talking and woman turns around to walk away from the bakery shop, Sarah runs without thinking. She runs, bumps straight into this woman. The woman drops all her pastries and bread, and before the woman herself could, drop, the man catches the woman so that she doesn't drop. Sarah finally grabs her bread and runs. As she's running, as she's sprinting, she's eating that bread because she hadn't eaten for 3 days. So she's like, yes, score. Unfortunately for Sarah, that baker has started running. He is now running after Sarah and he's yelling, thief! She's like, oh my god, this ignorant man, I am stealing from the worst. He's running, right? They go into this alleyway. There are a bunch of trash and cans. Now, I mentioned in the beginning that this New York is foggy, it's a chilly weather, cold and whatnot. Unfortunately, at this point in the day, its sun is out. There's no fog for Sarah to hide, and everybody's seeing them running. She goes into this alleyway, tries to hide behind the trash can, and as soon as she does, actually before she could even duck to hide, the man grabs her from behind, starts slapping her, so much so that the blood is coming out of her mouth now. Now, because Sarah has gone through so much abuse physically, emotionally, she tries to play it off. She tries to smile and say, did I interrupt your date, Mr. Baker? Because remember, the woman was actually smiling and laughing with this baker, so it was just a 1 + 1 = 2. That angered the man even further. He slapped her so hard, she got knocked to the ground. And this man got on top of her and started slapping her even more. She had gone through these slaps before. It's kind of crazy. The blood is coming out so much, she's like, okay, I need to diffuse the situation. She's like, okay, you got it, here's your bread, and she throws it into the face. That was the end, bro, because after she threw the bread to the man's face, it angered him so much, those slaps turned into actual fists. He starts smacking her so hard on her face that she nearly passed out in dizziness. The darkness was coming around her face and whatnot. I was like, this, she is done here, but she's trying to find something. She grabs a neck of the bottle, and lo and behold, that bottle was broken in half. She swams into the baker's neck. Blood is coming out of the man. She's nearly died and passed out there. She nearly passed out and died. So she sees the blood pouring out of the man's neck, the baker's neck. He tries to grab it, and as he's, gasping for air, he's still looking at her with pure disgust and hatred. She's like, yeah. She finally stands up because remember, she was on the ground. She nearly died, and she's also, gasping for air because he nearly got choked out. The man is dead. The baker's, I was like, yes, that's what you get. I still don't understand why the baker, of all people, like they could have even used a parent from one of the foster families to really drive the point home of her being an orphan and living in the streets and whatnot, but I don't know. This might be explained in the coming chapters, but this was my big gripe. Like, why a hard-working man, of all people, would be this harsh that he nearly kills a 16-year-old? Remember, this 16-year-old just stole one bread. He could have easily grabbed her. He had already grabbed her. All he had to do was take her to the police. Why did he do that? I don't know. Anyways, so as soon as she sees, oh my god, I've killed a man, she tries to run, but people are saying, hey, there she is, she's running, she's killed a man. As soon as she could run away, a man wearing two-piece suit, let that sink in, a man wearing two-piece suits grabs her out of nowhere, is like, where are you running, what have you done, and gives her to the police. That man is none other than freaking what I believe to be Malak, ladies and gentlemen. Yep, she has just killed a man. End of chapter 1. Now chapter 2 begins a week later after the incidents and events of what just happened, right? What had just occurred. And the book mentions how she's been carried to what we assume to be police station in a wagon, and she's not alone because there are other kids, and one of the boys actually, all these kids, one of the boys were tied not just on the wrists but ankles as well. So to play it down, one of the policemen says, this boy, he's a runner, that's why we gotta take precautions, but she's crying because she's in a horrible situation. The book mentioned they're all going to the House of Mischief. Now the book also mentioned that one of the actually judges heard Sarah's case and in the juvenile court because she's, under 18. But nobody believed her. Her plea of self-defense, it went nowhere. Even the bruises on her face, that didn't help her because they were turning yellow because, remember, it's been a week. But what didn't help is that it plays well in the court that the baker was a hardworking man, so the family was calling for harshest punishment so that this never happens again. They kind of eat up. They love eating that chisel up in the court. So here in the court, Sister Denise of the orphanage that I mentioned earlier, she knows all about the troubled past of Sarah Dillinger. She's out here snitching. She's out here exposing. Somebody should have exposed her abscise for sending her to these worst foster families and not looking... Bro. She even goes on to say that I tried everything to help her, but that she's the devil or that she was ruled by devil himself. God forgive her for not being able to save them. What? Sister Denise, Sister, if I had met sister, bro. So it wasn't long before she was sentenced to house for delinquent children until she was 18 so that she can be, this is crazy. They're waiting for her to turn 18 so that they can give her the harshest punishment possible. To me, that is crazy. So finally, they reached this place. As soon as they get out, a woman says, untie his feet for goodness sake. So the policeman helps, the girls get out from the wagon, but they just throw this boy to the ground into the cold mud. So she's like, what are you doing? Untie them. What are you talking about? And we finally see this woman that they described with salt and pepper here pulled back into a bun. At first I thought, wait a minute, is that Pierce? But no, Pierce is not in this. But what are you talking about? This woman, ladies and gentlemen, is none other than Matron Galloway. These kids now have to serve their time in this misfire house. They'll be given tasks and they will be given studies, and if they don't do their work, it will be a harsh punishment. Now, see, here it makes sense for them to do some work because they've been caught. The fact that those people were bro. Now, they mentioned about this massive building, right? Sarah thinks it's a mansion because it is large, 2 floors, many windows. Where have you seen 2 floors? You already know. There's also small buildings around and acres of crops and large barns. Where have you seen, ladies and gentlemen? I thought it was Deadly Decadence because Beers also mentioned about the mansion and whatnot, but I could be wrong. Anyways, the matron and the other women, they take the girls to the other section where we don't know. The policemen and other people, they take the boys toward the other section where we can hear metal. That's most likely where they would be doing their labor. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, the end of chapter 2. So y'all remember how I said that every time I will finish a chapter, then I would record? So if I get something wrong, I wouldn't know because I hadn't read the future. Well, that's exactly what happens. So chapter 3 immediately explains this ain't no mansion of gold watchers, bro. This is a hospital. And these are matrons, nurses, literally. So Matron Galloway, we're gonna call Matron anytime we ever see her Galloway. Her name is Galloway. Sarah and this other girl, they're told about their orders that, hey, you gotta behave, you gotta listen. If you don't, you're gonna get punished and you don't want to be punished. So, okay, they are given new clothes with their numbers on it. Sarah's number is 1055, and one of the girls started to cut her hair with this giant scissors. And the reason for it is actually that we don't like lice around here. We don't want lice. It was time for dinner, so they actually literally ate after days. The other girl kept looking at Sarah, hoping that, she would help her in this time. Sarah looked tough compared to the other girl. Like, Sarah knew what's up because she was from the streets. Not like that. But the other girl, she was very innocent. Sarah was like, I ain't having this, bro. I ain't starting to care about you. You're not my friend. The only friend is me. Every time they go to these rooms, they see other girls working. This is probably what they're gonna do, both Sarah and the other girl, moving forward, right? So they clean, dress to sleep, and they see around 50 bunks, like bunk beds, right? And all of these girls are, whispering, mumbling. They are not loud. As soon as the matron enters the room with Sarah and the other girl, they all stand like military. Sarah is shown her bed, which is in the back, and the other girl is all the way over the other side. And the book mentions how she keeps hoping that Sarah looks at her, but Sarah's like, nah, bro, I ain't about to look at you or anybody else, because she knows after what has happened in the chapter 1. So yeah, and they both go to sleep. So yeah, absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, chapter 3 kind of sort of confirms about why and how the matrons and the nurses in the torment therapy, they are so like loyal and whatnot. There is a whole thing. It's not like literally that. It's not literally torment therapy. It's not literally that hospital. Matron Galloway is not literally that matron, and the nurses are not literally Sarah and whatnot. It's just kind of sort of symbolizes the world of Dark Realm and whatnot. Again, this is real world. What we're seeing here in this story is real world. Remember, Dark Realm is taking the worst possible traits, the hopelessness, the despair, the guilt, from the real world into the Dark Realm. So that what makes sense. Anyways, so chapter 4 takes us to the literally next morning. The matrons and the maidens, the nurses maidens, they enter with the loud bells, and all the girls, they just quickly stood next to their bunks. Both the Sarah and the new girl, they see everybody is like synchronizing and rushing, and they're just standing there thinking, what's going on? And so the girl under Sarah's bunk who slept under her. She was like, hey yo, you better hurry the freak up because it's a very small time that we have, and we are not the only room. There are a bunch of us rooms, we're like 100, so it's gonna be a long line. If you want to be on it, you better hurry up or you're gonna miss something here and there. You're gonna slapped up because the maidens, nurses, they're roaming around the entire hospital, and they have switches, wooden switches, and it hurts, bro. So the good thing about Sarah is that she's smart and she observes and she picks up on rules really quickly, and she doesn't ask questions, she just observes and just adapts. So they mention about how some kids were being punished because they were taking too long or some were not hurrying up, but she was quick. So they finally get to the kitchen for breakfast. They have oats, and basically Sarah was just studying of who gets around, what is the best possible job that she can, you know, sneak into and whatnot. Like basically she's learning and observing and adapting. Outside it's still kind of dark, but inside they're using some sort of lights. So the girl, the red-headed girl who was sleeping under the Sarah's bunk, she sits next to Sarah. She doesn't look at her, but Sarah does look at her, and she's like, we wake up at 5. Our bunks are assigned to the area where we would be working. So this month, we'll be doing the laundry. So you and I will be here for a month. Good luck. And after the month, our bunks will rotate, and yeah, you'll be partnered up with someone new. So yeah, good luck. I'll see you in the next one. But before she's leaving, she says her name is Rebecca. Sarah's like, my name is Sarah. Good luck. And left. And that's the end of chapter 4, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, chapter 5 finally gets interesting. So we're now past few days, right? And both Rebecca and Sarah seems to be getting along. They're talking a little bit, and it's mostly Rebecca talking. Sarah's just listening, nodding, and maybe even, you know, giving answers to some question like, I'm from New York, or why are you here? I stole a bread. You got a family? I got no family. That's kind of answers and conversation they got going on. But they also mentioned the kind of sort of PTSD, I would say, from her experience back at the baker's where she had killed a man. She quickly buries that memory because of the horrible experience that happened to her, so she's kind of trying to balance it out. Remember, I mean, they're teenagers, but like, really, come on. But finally, one of these nights, right, she's awakened because she hears something under her bunk, under her bed, right, and she sees Rebecca getting out of the bed and walking down the aisle. Now, you would think that she's sleepwalking because nobody here breaks any kind of rules. At night, you gotta be sleeping. That's it. She doesn't follow her at first, Sarah. She just watches as her shadow drifts at the end of the aisle towards a wall, and then the shadow disappears. She's like, what the heck? Am I dreaming? Am I seeing a nightmare? What's going on? So she sat up, she tries to see, she's seeing nothing. So confused, she gets out of her bunk, and I'm like, bro, you're gonna get yourself in trouble. She sees Rebecca really wasn't there, like in her bed, she wasn't in the bunk. So she walks down the aisle the same path. She sees at the end of the aisle, there's a wall, a wooden wall, right? And she feels her hand through the wall, right? And she's so confused, she goes back to her bed and she waits. About an hour later, she watches Rebecca coming out of an opening in the wall. What? She is scared. Sarah's like, what the freak? Rebecca, like nothing happened, goes back to sleep. What? All of a sudden, she is like, I need to know what's going on. And that's the end of chapter 5. We have done 50 pages. Well done. Let's get to chapter 6. This is getting juicy. Guys, it's about to get epic. So chapter 6 starts in the next day, right? Literally next day. This time, Sarah's like, bro, I'm gonna follow Rebecca and see where she goes. So this time, she waits. Rebecca gets up, goes to the wall, and before she could do the thing, before she, walks into the wall, Sarah grabs her, put a hand on her mouth so that she doesn't scream, and she says, hey yo, you need to tell me what's going on, take me wherever you're going, otherwise I'll scream and be like you're trying to hurt me and whatnot, and we're both gonna get punished. So she nods. Sarah lets go of her hand. She enters. Basically what happened is that there was a brick that you press and the wall opens. So they now start talking. Sarah's like, what is this place? Rebecca said, I don't know, I just found it when I was sweeping the floors. It's a secret room. She's like, I don't know if Matron Galloway knows this because nobody has been here for a very long time. It's dusty, it's muddy, but there's a lot of books here, right? Candles, books, animal bones, feathers, and on the floor in the front, there was a giant red circle. Okay, you know where this is going. And Sarah immediately is like, is this a devil doo-doo worshipping? What's happening here? Rebecca's like, I don't know. but I have been trying to read these books. Why she's been trying and not actually reading these books? Because it's kind of like foreign language, because there are symbols on it, not really English. So immediately she's like, I remember Sister Denise talking about these rituals and devil worshipping, and it's a big no-no. But they also go back and talk about how the foster families who took care of, well, I say took care, but took Sarah in, and the orphanage as well, they didn't care much about Sarah's reading ability or even her education. Mostly she knows from her own learning and whatnot, so she doesn't know much how to read and whatnot. So it's funny because they both grab a big giant book. As soon as she looks at the book, there are symbols that starts to shift and actually make a word. Sarah's like, wait a minute, M-A-L-A-R? And Rebecca's like, that's not R, that's K, bro, what? But the pages were heavy and very sharp because as she moved her fingers, she accidentally cuts herself. Book drops, and because she cut herself, the blood from her fingers start pouring onto the book. Bro, it is a wrap for her. Yep. And as soon as that happens, the symbol starts shifting immediately, and she is like, what is it? Rebecca's like, what's going on? What is Malak? What? Malak? Malak? Sarah whispered, Malak. Now they're seeing the symbols are now changed into literal English, and there's a whole ritual which I'm not gonna read, but there's a ritual that it literally says that you need to speak these words, and they both do. Actually, Rebecca does, and Sarah's like, I have no choice but to do it. So they do it, unfortunately, and as soon as they do, the room's whole atmosphere changes. Air is shifting out and shifting in. Rebecca's eyes, they close, and then she drops on the floor. As soon as she does, before she could even get to Sarah, there's a tall man in a fine black suit. He steps into the dim light from the dark. A mortal child, he crooned. And a girl at that? How amusing. He's like, a woman? Woman summoning me? She's finna get slapped up, bro. Sarah, is it? How may I be of service? You summoned me, so you have my undivided attention. But he also said, for only 6 minutes because I'm quite busy, so be quick. Ladies and gentlemen, that was chapter 6. It's getting interesting. They have accidentally summoned a freaking Malak. Oh my god, bro, I just read chapter 7. Okay, so it starts with, of course, describing the Malak. He's still got his horns, he doesn't have fingers, he has those talons, 3 talons, he's got his own cigar, and he's got the tie that he's using and whatnot. And remember, Rebecca is passed out, right? And Malak is like, I know you. Alright, and he reveals everything. He's like, I know who you are, and I know how you got here. But then he drops this bombshell on her. He's like, you're not 16, you are 17, and you're not abandoned. And he reveals Sarah's backstory. It is crazy. Listen to this, guys. I'm just gonna read some quotes from the book. But before I do that, Malak does explain a little bit more. He said, I am a granter of wishes to mortals that call my name and summon me. Everybody needs help at times, and your situation looks the most dire. So we will talk about this in separate videos because there are many topics that actually needs a video to be explained and connect to chapter 5. But basically, Malak here, whoever does the ritual and call up Malak, he makes a deal. He's like, either you can do this and I will help you, or you don't. So Malak here explains that your mother held you not with love and protectiveness, but fear and burden. Malak reveals, ladies and gentlemen, that her mother, Sarah's mother, actually left her with a family who could not have children. So to a certain extent, okay, she had a plan, the mother. She's like, okay, I can't take care of you, but at least you'll now be a child to someone who can't have children, and you know, they will love you. But Malak reveals that it wasn't 3 years old like I mentioned in the beginning of the book. It's actually when she was just an infant, ladies and gentlemen. So Malak, you know, he loves that guilt, he loves that despair, hopelessness, and he's trying to see what kind of reaction she would have, but she's so, you know, amazed and she's so scared. So he goes on to reveal even more. He's like, oh, the family tried to take care for you. They did try to love you, but they were poor, so they couldn't do it. Unfortunately, the woman of that family, she lost her husband. So the nuns at the orphanage, they were kind of so right that they lost the husband. Is out of the picture. They said that the husband was lost in a dreadful mugging, so the woman had to turn to prostitution, and of course there's no time for taking care of a little child, and that's why they left her when she was 4 at the orphanage, and rest is history of her being drifting, helplessness, home to home, working, being beaten, degraded, unwanted ever since. So he's like, nobody cares for you, and here you are, killing a man and now serving the sentence. You got a nasty life, and it could get even worse. Just like he was gaslighting Doug Hauser, he's like, you're a nobody, wasting space on this planet. You are spawn of the devil. He even says, hey, I believe Sister Denise said this devilish thing at your trial. Remember back in a couple chapters ago? So I was like, no, I am someone. I'm a woman. I'm sorry, I gotta stop that. And Malak is like, oh no, I know, Sarah. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here to help you get out of this mess. He's like, I'll make a deal with you. A sacrifice for your freedom of, say, 10 years? Sarah's like, hold on a second. 10 years of freedom? What are you talking about? That's it? When I was like, that's it? But then Malak, of course, being a smooth talker that he is, listen to this. He says, you may think that's not very long, but let me tell you what can happen in 10 years of incarceration in this house of hell, shall we say. You will go along with the rules for a while until you can't take it anymore. You will be beaten more for your stubbornness and defiance. You'll be put in isolation. And this is crazy. He reveals that you'll be put in an isolation where Duggar, now I didn't mention Duggar, but yeah, remember Matron Galloway led the girls to the other area, and there was another area where they led the boys, where they took the boys. Duggar was there, the man who took the boys to the other side. That man's name was Duggar. So Malak is here saying, you will be visited by Duggar, where everyone will be pretend. This is crazy, listen to this. You will be put in a dark box of isolation for good old Duggar to visit you, occasionally when everyone pretends to look the other way. To me, that's crazy. That is insane, bro. Those boys on the other side, bro, it's nasty. And then he's like, it's gonna be so disgusting and it's gonna be ridiculous that you will take your own life. So he kind of reveals what's going on in this hospital. He says, you will be drugged and not be able to talk or eat on your own accord, strapped to a bed for as long as they wish to keep you here. And then he toys with Sarah a little bit more, trapped, hopeless, causing her, seeing her reaction. He loves that shizzle. So we go back to the deal. 10 years of freedom where I can go and eat whatever I want, live in whatever I want. But what is it, the deal? What kind of sacrifice I'm talking about? He's like, you've done this before. You will feel it right at home. You just gotta kill someone. You just gotta kill someone, and that killing is none other than the girl she came with to this freaking hospital. Oh my god. He even teases her saying, what is her name? Margaret? Mary? No, I know. Matilda, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, basically Malak is asking, hey, you gotta kill Matilda, the girl that came in with Sarah, in exchange for 10 years of freedom. He's like, hey yo, you can use scissors, pillow, even hands. I just want her dead. At first Sarah's hesitant. She's like, no, I can't take someone's life on purpose. The other one, that was an accident. This one, I can't do that. He's like, what? It's wrong? A sin? Against your morals? She's like, maybe, yeah. And then Malak knows he's got her where he wants. He's like, okay, a lifetime of torture and incarceration. Anyways, it's a free country. You do whatever you want. I got other things to do. I got some deals to make. I'm a busy man, bro. I'm a huge demon. I'm a demon who's the valuable around here. So, adios. And she's like, wait. Isn't there another way? Can we make another deal? And Malak replied, no other deal, Sarah. There's always a price to be paid. Make the sacrifice and you'll be free to do as you wish. And that's it. He was gone. And now she's sitting there thinking, what am I supposed to do? And as soon as Malak is gone, Rebecca wakes up and she's like, what happened? Sarah said, nothing. You just went to sleep. I got cut by this freaking book. We gotta go before Maiden arrives. These nurses arrive. We get slapped out. We gotta go, and they go back. Oh my god. So we witnessed firsthand what Malak was trying to do with Doug Hauser. Let's see what happens. But this is gonna be tight. Okay, so it's the next morning in chapter 8, and she wakes up as soon as, the bell starts ringing. The nurses are here, and she's debating 10 years of freedom or a lifetime of torture. It is your choice, Sarah. So everything is happening. The scripture is being read, the counting is happening, but she does not care, bro, because that deal is happening in her eyes, ear, mind, everything. Her life has become that deal. So she looks around and she finally sees Matilda, that girl, and she is scared. She is so thin, her frail body, and a voice whispers in Sarah's ear, indeed, it would be very easy for you to kill her. But she looks back, nothing was there. It was Malak. Malak is now fully locked in for this girl, and he's gonna get what he wants one way or another. So she's debating. I can't do it. She whispers. Rebecca's like, what are you talking about? What can't you do? She's like, I can't keep getting up early. Rebecca smiles. And she's like, you'll get used to it, bro. I feel the bonding. Oh, man. Vince Kelly, why did you do that, bro? So now they sat down to eat, and it's like as the universe wants her to do it, because Matilda is now sitting right across Sarah. So she doesn't look at her, but there's a big woman, right? Shaved-headed and whatnot. She sits right next to Matilda, right? And Sarah sees Malak appearing out of nowhere, saying something to the big woman, and then disappearing. She's like, has anybody seen that? Or is it just me dreaming and what? Now, of course, she can't say that, otherwise, she gets slapped up. She'd be like, you're also sick in the head. Are you sick in the mind? What this big woman does after listening to Malak is that she drops the plate of Matilda, of oats, on her, and then she throws the plate behind her in the back. What are you talking about, bro? She's already nervous. She is scared, and she stands up. Nurse comes down. She's like, what's going on? She's like, I had an accident. I'm sorry. And she's like, you idiot child. Grab that, clean this mess up right now before you get slapped up. She didn't say slapped up, I'm saying slapped up. Boy, they might as well just call it slapped up. That big woman, she was smiling and looking at Sarah. That smile was evil. It's like Malak is doing his thing. He could easily do that, but the way he's just playing, he loves that. He loves that she loves it. But that's the end of chapter 8. Let's go to chapter 9. Okay, so chapter 9 kind of confirms where we are. So it's night, right? And she opens her eyes to a woman that she doesn't recognize, a young woman at that, calling her out. She's like, Sarah, wake up, come this way. Sarah, come find me. So she gets up from her bunk and she sees the door cracked open. She's like, what's going on? So she goes around and nobody sees her getting out of her bunk, getting out of her bed, right? She walks down the hallway. The voice is still calling out to her. So it's not Rebecca, it's not Matilda, it's not Matron Galloway, it's not those girls or nurses or maiden, nobody. It's a voice she hadn't heard before. It's a new voice, a youthful voice at that. So she opens this door and she sees a nurse. Now this is a literal nurse from chapter 4, Torment Therapy, because she's wearing the outfit with the red cross on her face, the soggy bag on her face, and roller skates wearing. This is literal nurse from Torment Therapy, and she's like, and she even has those lines. She's like, I'm here to check on you. Lord Malak says you're one of his new clients, so I need to check your vitals. She's like, what are you blabbing about? What are you talking about? So she's like, I'm about to check your vitals, and she literally does what she did to Doug in chapter 4. And the similar thing happened there when, Doug went on the scale and the fire came from the top. He went back. She's like, oh, we gotta fix that. She does the exact same thing here. And when she grabs this big needle in this other room, she's like, you need to get your shot. It's a big app-size needle, the same one we saw in chapter 4. She's like, hey. Sarah's like, what in the I ain't about to get any of that. Get me out of here. So she tries to run, and the chase scene is on. So the nurses are here, and they're doing the exact same thing. Don't be unruly patient. Nurses mentioned that Matron will not be happy, and Sarah thinks, is she the same Matron Galloway? So I feel like yes, she is Matron Galloway. I think this is confirmed, kind of, sort of. So they're running, right? They're chasing her, and she's running. She's trying to scream, but nothing comes out of her mouth. The air is just like poof, gone. So she's running, and she runs into this giant literal matron from chapter 4, who is this big wood like thing, giant nurse, and she's like, there you are. It's a funny interaction there. Matron says, where do you think you're going? And she says like, too bad. Honestly, at this point, I would want Dark Deception to adopt the book into the freaking TV show, because that would be so funny. So they start chasing her, everybody, and she's hoping to get back as soon as possible to bed, and she finally does. They have this back and forth. She rushes inside, goes back to her bed. She's trying to find anything. So she enters the kitchen, and she's looking for a spot to hide, and she finds this pantry, quickly goes in, closes the door. So nurses around there like, oh shizzle, mocking her. Oh no, where did she go? They know she's hiding inside. Where did she go? Matron is gonna kill us. And bam, they open the pantry. As soon as the nurses grab her, she's quickly jerked awake by the morning bell in the bunk, and she sees everybody else back in their place. It's the morning time, everybody's getting up. The ring bell is here, the nurses, matron, and everything, and she's like, what happened? And as soon as she removes her sleeves, there's a big giant bruise there. Yep, she got the shot from the nurses. Let's move to chapter 10. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, chapter 10 solidified this book for me. Okay, listen to this. Next morning, actually that morning, the one that she woke up with the bruise and whatnot, she's thinking to herself, okay, what is happening, right? Is Malak playing with me? Because also the chapter 10 confirms they're called Reaper nurses. So yeah, there you go. Anyways, she's not with Rebecca. She's staying behind because she wants time to herself to think, what's going on? Like, why? What's happening? Is Malak doing this to force me to do this deal? She's like, nah, bro, I ain't doing it because nobody's gonna force me to do anything. She's gonna eat her words. But as soon as she says, okay, I'm not doing this, freak this deal. Literally the next moment, she hears somebody crying. She turns around a corner, and that same big app-sized woman who was bullying Matilda yesterday was literally choking Matilda. And she was crying Matilda, and she was gasping for air. She was big, so Matilda was gonna die. So Sarah was like, what am I supposed to do? Malak appears out of nowhere, and Malak says, I need this death. I need Matilda's death. He needs this innocent soul, right? And so Gertrude, the woman's name, the giant woman name, who was literally choking out Matilda, Malak is like, he's willing to take the deal. I just need this soul. So both of you got the same deal. Either you do it or she does it. I don't care. This is where everything changes. Sarah quickly changes. She's like, literally a minute ago, she's like, I'm not doing this. Sarah's like, I will not be forced or cheated out of my deal. She runs quickly, stomps on Gertrude's foot or feet. She drops Matilda. Matilda is gasping for air, and Gertrude says to Sarah, you will regret this, you little shit. She didn't say little, I added that in. Great clap back from Sarah. She's like, I regret nothing. She grabs Matilda's hand, and they both run, bro. Oh my god. They finally go into this place with other girls so they can hide and whatnot, catch a moment to themselves, and Matilda is like, thank you for helping me. And Sarah is standing there. Finally, Matilda, who's been looking for hope in Sarah, she finally got that hope. Not only she found Sarah, but Sarah actually helped her, and she is so thankful. Matilda, I feel for her. So Sarah's like, okay, Gertrude is after you. You cannot be alone, and you need to watch your back. So Sarah's now taking full responsibility. She's like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna kill you, but I'm definitely not letting that big app-sized bald woman take my deal. So until I figure something out, I need to take care of Matilda. So she asks Matilda, where are your chores? She's like, housekeeping. Sarah's like, then go now. And Malak appears at the end. Of course he does. And he's like, my offer still stands for you and for Gertrude. Good luck. Oh, they end the chapter with who wants it more. I'm here for it, bro. This chapter solidified this book for me. Oh my god. Let's go to the next chapter. Okay, so the next chapter talks about a couple of days, right? It's been a couple of days. Sarah is trying to keep the peace. Sarah is trying to protect Matilda as well as keep an eye on Gertrude. And it's difficult because, you know, all three of them have different duties, right? They all have separate chores that they have to do. She takes time out from her chores. She's like, I need to use the restroom. And she goes around making sure that Gertrude is not there to kill Matilda. The book talks about the irony of this Sarah protecting Matilda situation, because basically Sarah is protecting Matilda from Gertrude's hands, but it's eventually going to lead to her death anyway, so what? But during one of the study session, Sarah and Matilda, of course, they sat together, and Matilda said to Sarah, I want to thank you for watching over me. Sarah's like, whatever, don't worry about it. You know, because she's not used to these kind of, you know, conversations. She's not used to people, you know, thanking her or appreciating her and whatnot, or being grateful. Matilda keeps going. There are not many who would help me. I'm very grateful. You know how when people thank you, they, you know, put hand on your hand. She's like, you know, thank you for doing that. She's quickly jerked the hand back whilst looking away, saying, it's not a big deal, so don't make it one. The book mentions something very dark. They said Sarah didn't care for people touching her. When she was a child, adults would occasionally pat her head, and as she grew up, the touches became more unkind. Yeah. Man, I hate this, honestly. Anyways, at the end of the day, Sarah was like exhausted, right? From working in the laundry room and whatnot. Remember, this is the same month, right? And she asked one of the nurses that, hey, I want to be excused. I want to go to the restroom, literally. And the nurse is like, okay, quickly, we do not allow dallying in the halls of Miss Firehouse. So as soon as she goes to the washroom, there is another mysterious door that opens out of nowhere. So the book now in this builds up to the next event. Remember, the last time this happened, she went into the chapter for Matron Reaper Nurse's torment therapy. Where she's gonna go this time? Well, I'll tell you, because this time she went to the hotel because murder monkeys make a surprise appearance in here, and it's actually well built. But at this point, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know if some of these are warned, because nurses one, matron, it makes sense because Sarah is here. All of a sudden, monkeys are here. How? Like, why are they here? I feel like this one doesn't feel as earned or as honest as the torment one, but torment therapy nurses one. But hey, I'm glad to see the monkeys anyway. So they start chasing her. Remember, compared to nurses, they're vicious, vile. They're far more, extreme and violent. So she needs to step up her, running game. So she starts sprinting. One turns into two. She looks back, there are two monkeys chasing her, so she's like, Malak, please stop this. I know you're the one doing this, you're the one forcing me to get the deal, but stop this, please. She's running so hard that she nearly fainted. That's how fast she was running. But one door finally opens to her left, and she quickly goes in, closes the door, and the monkeys are so fast, they catches up to that door, and their hands, because it's knives, they pierce through the door. They can see that, and so she jumps back, waits a little bit, monkey after doing that thingy, because they're monsters, they don't have intelligence, they kind of fade away and go back and go away after a little bit. So she looks around, she's like, what kind of room am I? And then it finally clicks. In this room there are a lot of beds and there are a lot of girls. She's like, okay, I'm finally waking up from this nightmare. But wait, these girls are not shaved. Some have long hair, some have short hair. What's going on? And it clicks because these girls are tied to their beds. Sarah cannot believe this because it's literally what Malak said about these nurses tying girls who are unruly and torturing them. So at the end, some of these are like passed out, dead, maybe sleeping, whatever, but one of the girls, she's a little bit awake. So Sarah goes to her, she's like, what happened to you? Are you sick? Are you? She's like, she reveals basically that I was unruly, I was bad, and they have trapped me in here forever. Yes, Sarah's like, how long? She's like, forever. I don't know when it is daytime, I don't know when it's nighttime. It's a black box of isolation, like Malak said. And she starts laughing crazily and loudly because she's been here for so long. Tears starts running down her face. Do you want to take my place forever, Sarah? This time she runs back to the door where she came from, opens the door. It was a hallway that she recognized. Bam, runs all the way back to the laundry room, away from this insane place. That was an insane chapter. Let's move on to the next chapter, shall we? So the next chapter, chapter 12, talks about how Sarah needs to take some control of the things because Malak is all over her. He's taunting her with monsters and whatnot. He just showed a glimpse of what would happen if Sarah doesn't take the deal. He would be here forever, tortured and trapped, and it's not going her way at all. So she finally decides, okay, it's time to talk to Malak. I gotta figure this out, right? I can't let this happening. So she gets out of her bed at night, goes into the wall, starts, looking for that opening, but it doesn't open. She's like, what? It was here? She tries and it doesn't work. She goes back to bed, looks at Rebecca. She's sleeping. Rebecca's sleeping. She's like, I'm gonna have to ask for her help. Tomorrow what happens, she finally talks to Rebecca after so long, and she's like, hey, can we go to that secret room tonight? Rebecca is like, what are you talking about? What secret room? Sarah is shocked. The one that you found while you were sweeping. The one that we went to a couple nights ago. What are you talking about? And Rebecca was like, huh? That cat meme, huh? That did not happen. What do you tell you? You have some good dreams. She laughs and she walks away. Yep, it was Malak who erased her memory. So now Malak explained a little bit more than in the real world. If you summon him, he can do all these nasty things. He's got full control over her. Whilst he was walking away after that conversation, Malak just threw in that flashback once more about that monkey maze last night. She's like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna have to find a way to do this. And Matilda comes from behind her. You can wait for me. Sarah's like, I had to speak to someone. It seems you're alright, by the way. But she wouldn't look at her. Matilda says, yes, I am okay. Sarah finally turns toward her and says, you have to watch out for yourself as well. I can't always be there, understand? She was harsh. And Matilda, being sad, I understand. And that's the end of freaking chapter. Also, it's confirmed that once you summon and gets involve Malak into your things, he can really play tricks in your mind. So I'm really interested to see what happens with Blue Ball and how she's doing, and does Malak know that Blue Ball exists, and what are the powers? I'm really interested in that. So yeah, let's move on to the next chapter. So things are now getting crazy. It is chapter 13. Malak is going all in. He kind of sort of knows that Gertrude could have easily taken Matilda's life if he really wanted Gertrude to do it, but he wants Sarah to do it, and that's why he's toying with her. So she's having another nightmare. This time she's in the maze with the monkeys, and this time monkey actually kills her. And as soon as they do, she wakes up. She does feel in her stomach a pinch of monkey's blades running through her stomach, the blood spilling up. But it was a nightmare. This time it was a nightmare, and she wakes up and she's like, is this gonna happen to me every time? Now she's having two thoughts. I would be like, hey, would I be really free if I take this life? Would Malak really let me live? He will. He probably will for 10 years. After that, it's a different story altogether. But yeah, she's like, I don't know what to do. Malak is like, you don't know what to do. So she grabs her pillow. She's going for it. She walks all the way down to Matilda's bed. She sees her, so innocent, right? Her fragile body. She's taking those small breaths. She's so thin, her veins popping out. She's picturing herself. She's like, this might actually be good for her. She's trying to logically she's thinking. Malak comes in, says, if it's not you, Gertrude more certainly will kill her. Then you will be stuck in here. So she's like, I have to do this, because if I don't, I will go mad in this house and they will tie me to that hidden room forever. It's forever, by the way. Forever. That's crazy. Anyways, Malak comes back in saying, hey, you took one life, you can take another. Don't overthink it, just do it. He's picturing, he's like, yep, this is the moment. So Sarah's arm, they begin to tremble. She squeezes her eyes tight, and just as she's about to do it, she backs off. She's like, damn it! She's like, dang you, Malak, and your monsters. She goes back to her bed and starts crying quietly. That's the end of it. So we finally have our first attempt. Remember, this has been going on for a while. They have made a bond together, and I just don't like the fact that how Rebecca is just brushed aside. Unless she's gonna come into these next chapter, I feel like they should have played it a little bit more with Rebecca and Matilda. That, hey, what are you doing? Sarah was not having anything with Matilda when she came in. But Rebecca was the first one that she opened it to, and they got a little close. The fact that they're not going all in with Matilda and Rebecca, I don't know, it's just my opinion. Anyways, let's move on to chapter number 14. Okay, so chapter 14, the next morning, she's lightheaded. She looks like she's tired. Hadn't had good sleep. Matilda catches up to her. She's like, are you okay? You look pale. You look tired. Did you not sleep well? She's like, I'm fine. They were the last in the room. Since Sarah is tired, she's behind Matilda. Matilda's walking in front, right? And out of nowhere, bam, Gertrude appears out of nowhere, and she grabs Matilda, her arm, right? Sarah, she couldn't react quickly. She's super slow, sluggish, and then she quickly runs to them. Gertrude, she pulled out a knife, a kitchen knife. Sarah's like, oh god, this is about to go nasty. Matilda, she's trying to get back, fight, but Gertrude, she's a strong big woman, right? She swings a knife, but Matilda quickly gets back, just missing her face. It appears, the book says, that Matilda was a girl used to avoiding attacks. That's even horrible. So Sarah finally gets into the action. She grabs Gertrude's arm, and that actually helps Matilda because Gertrude let go of Matilda's arm. Sarah steps back, grabs Matilda, they both run away. And they walk further into the bunk room, right? Gertrude here, you're always messing up my plans. Who do you think you are? Sarah got no time for clapbacks. Sarah got no time for answers. She's thinking of ways to maneuver past Gertrude, and she's thinking of how do I not only keep Matilda safe, but also get myself out of this situation, right? So Sarah pushes Matilda. She runs away, and Sarah knows only one attack that she could use against Gertrude, and that is to stomp on her feet. And this time, she kneed her in the gut. But Gertrude, ladies and gentlemen, slammed her fist into Sarah's cheek. The hit was so brutal, ladies and gentlemen. That was nasty. Sarah could only do one thing, and that she bit hard on Gertrude's hand. She screamed, she released the knife, the weapon is now on the floor. Sarah tried to kick it away, but as soon as she was trying to get away as well, Gertrude grabs Sarah's neck, squeezing. Now this is the second time she is in this position, right? The first time with the baker, this time, and the same thing is happening. She's becoming dizzy. What will happen? Will she find something here to get herself out of this? But it seems like no. She's fading away. The room is turning gray. She cannot do anything. Suddenly and finally, the two nurses, they rush onto the scene. They're like, stop it right now. They have their switches. They actually start beating both of them. She's like, you evil idiot girls. You will be punished for this, ladies and gentlemen. That's the end of chapter, by the way. So chapter 15 is a little bit long, so stay with me here. So the matron is now angry, right? She's like, You think I will allow fighting in my house? And they're both tired from the fight. Sarah was already tired because she hadn't gotten good sleep. And nobody answered. She's like, I'm speaking to you, you ignorance. That's her words, by the way, not mine. And Sarah quickly said, no, Matron Galloway. Then why do you dare? Did you think I would not find out? That you would not be punished for your new sins? And of course, instead of going for Gertrude, it would have been obvious that she was the one who started the fight. The matron grabbed Sarah's chin, saying, you will learn to follow my rules, Sailor Dillinger. You do not want to know what happens to girls who don't. Do you understand me? Sarah knows, bro. She's been through that hidden room, and she's like, of course. So sorry, Matron Galloway. And she smiles. Matron, intimidation. Oh, you will be sorry. You both will be sorry. So they're doing all right, decent, Sarah and Gertrude, to not get the worst of the punishments. And Matron is like, okay, if you want to fight like boys, then you're gonna work and labor like boys. They call for Duggard, and Duggard is here. That man is huge. So yeah, Duggard comes in. Matron is like, here, Sarah and Gertrude, they have 1 week of duties with you. Put them to work immediately. So now they're outside, right, with the boys. Whilst they were going there, they see the boys working in the barn. They see some of them in the field, taking care of chickens and whatnot. Some are hammering things. Some are making some buildings and whatnot. So the boys do stare at Sarah and Gertrude, but most of them, they just keeping their work. Duggar takes them to a barn. Put those rubber boots on. It's time to get to work. The shovels are here. Clean up the crap. You know what to do. As soon as Duggar left, Gertrude starts spitting out, this is all your fault. Sarah quickly saying, oh, shut it, it's yours, and you know it. Gertrude replies, she's not yours. Talking about Matilda, of course. Sarah quickly responds back, or yours. If she's not mine, she's not yours either. So they both put on the rubber boots, grab a shovel. Sarah's like, you take the left, I'm taking the right. Gertrude's like, don't tell me what to do. Sarah's like, fine then. Do what you want, but I'm taking the right side. And they both get to work. So after a hard working session, it's finally lunchtime. And they gather around with the boys in another barn with the tables and whatnot. And so they get in a line with the boys. Some of them looked at them, some murmured, but nobody made much, fuss about it, because they will get punished if they make a fuss about it. But yeah, she didn't care much. She got a ladle of beans with a square of a cornbread, so it's different, and she hadn't ate breakfast. She's hungry. But interestingly, she notices that the amount of boys here are far less, because the amount of girls are like 3 times more than the boys. So that should tell you something. So while she was eating, it was good. She was like, this was bussin'. A boy asks her, what did you do to get assigned to this shoveling? Sarah glances the boy, but he was smiling and was playful. Sarah said, fighting. So he looks at Sarah, he looks at the other girl, Gertrude, and he's like, each other. And he shakes his head. He's like, a bit of an uneven match, don't you think? So Gertrude is roaming around. She looks at both Sarah and the boy because they were talking mad about her. And Sarah says, you should see the girl she attacked, even smaller. It's interesting to me because the book mentions how she's engaging in the conversation more, unsure why, because she's now at a point in her life, kind of, sort of. And they actually go back and forth. The boy said, and you stepped in, did you? She said, not my wisest decision. Boy says, regretting it now? And she claps back with her famous line, I regret nothing. Boy's impressed, but she wasn't trying to impress anyone. It was time to get back to work for more shoveling and smelling dirty crap. End of chapter. So it's the next day and I start reading chapter 16. Nothing major happens in chapter 16. Basically, both of them worked and now it is time for bath. They both clean themselves up, go back to their bunks and beds. They don't talk to each other, they just ignore. But as soon as she gets back to bed, she's ridiculously tired. It was a tough labor work. But as soon as she does, Matilda jumps onto her bed and starts, saying, hey, thank you. Finally gaining confidence. I think that's a key importance here. And they mention about their conversation basically back and forth about how Matilda is thanking her, and she's like, no one has ever done that for me. They revealed that Matilda was given up by her mother and a sister. They were teaching Matilda how to steal and lie, and when they got caught, they put all the blame on Matilda. The police took her away, and ever since then she was just alone, so she doesn't know how to be loved. So yeah, that's a very sad backstory for her. So she's like, I'm just thankful for you. No one has ever done that. Not my blood and not my family. So you doing that, it means a lot to me. She's like, I understand. But guilt was starting to, creep on her after all this. And she asks finally,
Hey, yo, Sarah, why do you think Gertrude after me? I've never done anything to her. Am I an easy score because, it would make her feel better to, hit someone of my small, stature and whatnot? Sarah knows the answer, but she's like, nah, she's just crazy. Don't worry about it. I'll, protect you. Go back to your bed. I'm sleepy. I'm tired. She does. She hugs her and then she goes to her bed. Sarah shoves those thoughts away and she finally goes to sleep. We move to chapter 17. Okay, so chapter 17 puts us into the next line of duty for Sarah and Gertrude. Remember, they are in here for days now, so they're working the boys' labor for a few days now. The next one was in the fields, in the cornfield and whatnot. So they're trying to work. Sarah is out here with the wheat and ropes and all that other stuff, but she doesn't know how to do it. She's getting herself cut. She doesn't understand what to do. So the boy from the previous chapters who introduced himself from the other side, he tried to help her, saying, hey, do it this way. It would be easier and faster. She did it. She tied the rope of the wheat and it worked. So she shouted back, thanks. And he said, thanks, Peter. His name is Peter. So now we're starting to build another relationship here, another connection. So Sarah gotta be careful. That's 3 now. Rebecca, Matilda, and now Peter. She gotta chill out, bro. Duggard, that man, out of nowhere starts to undo all the hard work that Peter did. He cuts the rope, wheat is all over the place. He's undoing all the hard work that Peter has done. He's angry now, Peter. He starts to hit him back. He starts to, try to shove him, not hit him back, but shove him to, not undo his hard work. That was the last straw for Peter because Peter is a boy and Duggard, well, he's not gonna go easy on a small, thin boy. He started beating him. His eye is swelling so hard. Sarah tried to warn Peter, don't do it. It's not worth it. But Peter didn't listen. Just coming from, helping Sarah and whatnot. He's, building his own confidence and whatnot. Remember, out of all the boys there, Peter was the only one that Sarah felt that, hey, this guy has spirit. Just like Matilda is starting to build up that confidence, right? Anyways, so Sarah, against her better judgment, she jumps to Duggard, try to, take down Duggard, make him stop and whatnot, but it doesn't work out for him. He slaps her so hard. That was easily one of the hardest slaps Sarah had ever taken because it split her lip open. She's bleeding. Both of them are bleeding. But before he could do further damage, a nurse started shouting and be like, hey, yo, Duggard, stop this, get back. Because she knew none of them did anything to be punished, so he was just doing that. So they share a moment, they have a back and forth conversation. She's like, why? Why did you do that? You know how big Duggard is. Peter's like, he's a bully. He will not break my spirit. And asked the same question to Sarah. What did you think was you's gonna do to Duggard, that man, that huge man? You's not gonna do anything. I'm too far into this. I'm too far into helping people and caring people. The book mentions how even small act of kindness, when done to Sarah, she doesn't know what she's doing because she starts to help people, starts to actually care for them. Compassion is starting to build up in her. So she snaps and, well, in her own mind that no, I can't be not with first Matilda, now Peter. This has got to stop. The chapter ends with Sarah didn't have friends. Her only friend is herself. She had no one. That's the end of chapter. Let's move on to chapter 18. Okay, so chapter 18 builds upon the boys section of the area of the hospital, right? We learned what it means to be defiant, what happens if you're unruly in the girls section. Now what happens when you are unruly and defiant in the boys section? Well, we learn. So this time it's the next day, right? And Sarah, after learning from the last chapter, right, she is not giving Peter anything anymore. She's not giving him looks. She's not even saying anything. So he does strike up a conversation that, hey, how's it going? She doesn't see anything. She starts working and she's like, okay, that's how it is then. Fine, I understand. But once she's doing her work, Duggard this time comes to Sarah and undoes her work. But she doesn't say anything because she has experience of holding her emotions in these sorts of times, right? So he undoes all of her work to see her reaction, but she doesn't say anything. She quickly goes back to work like nothing happened. Of course, she lost hours of work, but that was bound to happen. And when Duggard leaves, Peter's like, you're stronger than me. But they get back to work. Finally, when the day is over, they ate, and it was time to clean the barn where they ate. Usually there would be 2 boys, but this time these 2 girls, Sarah and Gertrude. So they're on the opposite side of each other in the barn. So Gertrude is all the way over there, Sarah's all the way over here, right? And out of nowhere, she has this red flashlight and whatnot, and she sees over to Gertrude, there's a demon. Well, who's to hide anymore, bro? It was Malak talking to Gertrude, and I was like, yo, Malak is gonna tell Gertrude to go after Peter, but we don't know. I haven't read the next chapter after this, but here
right? Malak says something and he leaves. So Sarah goes to her and asks what happened. What did he tell you? She's like, what are you talking about? You idiot. There's nobody here. Sarah's like, don't lie to me. I know, I saw him, bro. What did he say? She was smiling. She was giving her that evil grin smile. So Sarah, against her better judgment, she shoves her. She stops her from her work and be like, you need to tell me now. She gets slapped up. And she gets slapped up once again. This time she got caught off guard both of the times. But as soon as she does get back to it, she puts her hands up. She sees Duggard pulling Gertrude away. The book mentions how every time Duggard is around, Sarah could hear the keys. But this time she didn't hear them. That's why it caught her off guard. Duggard pulls Gertrude back, grabs Sarah, ties her hand, takes her to the end of another barn, and put her in a box, closes it, and put a lock on it. Yep, she's done for, bro. She starts to scream and whatnot. There was a handkerchief in her mouth so that she couldn't scream. She starts crying, but nobody comes for her. She falls asleep, right? And in her dream, she hears Reaper nurses calling out to her, hey, we want to help you. But she almost said yes, but she was like, I don't know what kind of help they would give me, bro. So she drifts back to sleep. After a while, we don't know how long. Possibly it was the next day, right? The lock opens, and this time Duggard opens only because another nurse maiden was like, okay, enough. Get her out. And the nurse maiden helps Sarah get out. She was so, like, her mouth was so dry because the handkerchief, her tongue was so dry. There was no saliva in her mouth at that time. She was hungry, growling. She was stuck in the same position for so long, possibly overnight. Basically, she couldn't stand. We move to chapter 19, ladies and gentlemen. It's the next morning, and whatever happened last night is actually catching up to her because it's the morning. You know what they do. The counting and the scripture reading and whatnot. All the girls have to be counted for and standing beside their bunk and bed. They do, but unfortunately for Sarah, she's in her bed. She cannot move. She cannot get up. She's dizzy. She's drifting in and out of sleep. They call her name. They were like, get up right now or you're gonna get punished. But she tries to. She does get up, but she falls to the ground. One of the nurses rushes to her, feels her. She's like, she's sick, matron. What do we do? So she's like, oh my god, this girl is causing me so many troubles. Get her to the infirmary quickly. I'm like, she's done for. So they take her to the infirmary, right? And in a brief moment, whilst she was going away, she has this flashback of maybe what I feel like her mother, either her real mother or the foster mother, before the foster mother abandoned her, I'm talking about. She remembers herself being little, and you know how they throw the kids up in the air and the kids laugh and they feel like, oh, they were in the air. She has that brief moment, but yeah, it is sad. But as soon as she gets back, she sees the broken and dirty walls and ceilings of House of Mystery. Like, ah, god dang it. But yeah, she's now in this infirmary. She looks around and she's scared. She's like, wait a minute, is this the same place I saw in my dream nightmare where they take the bad kids? I get it. But no, she sees around herself. She's not tied. Her wrists and her ankles not tied. There are other kids, girls and boys in the other beds, and there's a nurse maiden with her. She's like, where am I? She's like, you're in an infirmary. And Sarah asks, how long have I been here? She's like, you've been here for 2 days straight. But your fever broke last night, so you're strong. So she goes away. She's like, I'm gonna take a soap. I'm coming back. She's like, finally, thank goodness. I'll finally take some rest. There's another nurse, right? Sarah mentions she had seen before, but doesn't know her name. That nurse weirdly comes to Sarah, gives her the food because she was, bringing food for her. And then she whispers, Peter wants to see you. What? And Sarah's like, how? She doesn't know much, but she's like, outside the laundry work. That's it. She leaves. And now Sarah, after eating, thinks to herself, what would Peter want to say to me? Is he also in on the whole Malak thing? She didn't say that. I'm thinking to myself. She had forgotten about Peter. But Peter has not. It seems like we move to chapter 20, ladies and gentlemen. Guys, before we get to the next chapter, I'm in the middle of reading it, by the way, but I actually stood up. I closed the book, I stood up. I'm acting like such a little child, bro. They're planning something, and I'm so on edge. I just want to say shout out to Kelly and Vince, man. They have cooked up this story so well. If there's ever a TV show or a movie, I want them to adapt this first story. I know people keep talking, especially this Mr. is telling me the next story is even crazier, but this story has gotten me. I'm folded in, bro. This show makes no sense. If you're still watching this video, Susu for more 100k, like the video. Let's get to the chapter. So this chapter is after she has recovered, right? She's now going back to her duties and whatnot. She's back into the girls section and everything is going for the time being smoothly. Matilda finally catches up to Sarah. She's like, hey, she tried to hug Sarah, but Sarah pulled her back. She's like, so Matilda was so disappointed. It kind of reminds me of Doki Doki Club Sayori's. But yeah, we diverse from that conversation. It gets depressing real quick. That Doki Doki Literature Club I'm talking about. Anyways, so Sarah's like, I'm fine, but has Gertrude done anything to hurt you? Has she done anything? And Matilda's like, no, she's been on her best behavior ever since you two came back. It seems like she is, learned her lesson from whatever punishment you guys got. And Sarah remembered, Gertrude wasn't put in a box, so why is she on like this? Then I clicked that Malak was doing something into her ear. So clearly Sarah knows here as well that she's planning something. She's just waiting for the right moment to strike. But anyways, they move, and out of nowhere, right, somebody grabs Sarah from behind and whirls her around. It is Peter. Peter is like, I told you, I wasn't kidding. I wasn't messing around when I told you I will meet you. Sarah is looking confused. She's like, how you're gonna get caught? You need to go now. So Peter reveals that what he wanted to say. He was like, I got a plan. I got a plan in motion, and you and I will leave. He slips a small paper into Sarah's hand. The book does mention about hope, and Sarah is so confused. Of course, she sighs because she doesn't know how to read properly, right? So whatever Peter wrote in that small paper, she wouldn't know. So she goes to Matilda. She's like, I need you to read this, but keep it to yourself. Don't do any. And as soon as she reads, she gives off a reaction. She's like, I told you to keep it quiet. Matilda becomes sad. She's like, you're leaving me? Sarah's like, no, I'm not leaving you. We'll go together. You and I and Peter, the three of us will all go. But what does it say? Matilda gives a small smile, but she's, still on edge, and she tells Sarah that there is a plan that Peter has. He's been gathering supplies, he's been keeping track of the timing and whatnot, and he reveals the plan, basically, and Sarah's like, okay. We move to chapter 21. Okay, so the next chapter is literally the next morning, and she's still feeling all bubbly, and butterflies are around her. She's like, there's a boy that likes me, yo, what? So she's in her thoughts, right? And is there finally someone out there who actually cares for me? Because all my life, nobody cared for me. So is finally there someone out there? But she's in her thoughts. She suddenly tripped because somebody had put their foot next to her, and she didn't catch it because, she's in her thoughts and whatnot, and it was Gertrude, bro. Gertrude is like, did you really forget about me, you little shizzle? They have a back and forth. Basically, Gertrude reveals, and Sarah's like, oh, I'm so scared. I've taken on you before, and I will do it again. You will not hurt me or Matilda anymore. Gertrude's like, oh, I don't care about Matilda anymore. My deal is changed, and now my deal involves you. It is time to take you out. So Malak has now given Gertrude a different deal. Malak is like, you need to take out Sarah. I don't care about Matilda's life. He has done a phenomenal job here because he's seeing that Sarah is protecting Matilda, right? And Gertrude is having a hard time because of Sarah. So now he has turned tables on Sarah once again. Sarah has to take out Matilda. Gertrude is now asked to take out Sarah, and he asks Sarah to take out Matilda. This is crazy. I 100% believe that Peter will come into play with this Malak deal as well, but now she's shocked because Gertrude is like, I'm after you, and she leaves. But Sarah's thinking to herself, he changed the deal for Gertrude. Is there a deal even there for me? Because Malak hadn't spoken to her in like days. She tried to reach out to Malak, but she doesn't know if the deal is still on. So Sarah's like, you know what? Fine. I don't need your deal anyway, Malak. I'm gonna walk away. I'm gonna run away from here. You will see, you demon. She's like, I don't need you after all. That's how they end chapter 21. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, chapter 22. It is the day of escaping. The plan is in place. They're like, it is time. So this chapter is amazing because it literally word for word sets up the scene, and it takes you to the journey. It takes you to the experience. It puts you right into the shoes of Sarah. They haven't slept all night, both of them. They know about Gertrude. At least she knows about Gertrude and her deal with the Malak, so she's cautious. They both get together. They haven't slept. You could see the wrinkles around Matilda's eyes, but they make a run for it. They make a way for it. They go to the place where they were supposed to meet Peter. She's like, okay, but first they have to go through the kitchen, right? Because there's a door behind the kitchen that leads them to the place that they have to meet Peter. There's a chef there cooking. They wait. The book mentions it so well. I cannot do that justice, but the book mentions it so well, how she waits, bides her time. Something's happened in the kitchen. They get an opening and they run for it. Finally happy that, hey, we have made it, because the plan hinged on Peter, meeting Peter, right? Most of Sarah's work was just to meet Peter. It would be, we'll see from there on point onward. So they're there where they were supposed to meet Peter. So they're happy, all smiles, yay. But they hear something. They hear grunts. and Sarah clocks it. Duggard, ladies and gentlemen, has caught Peter. The bag is on the floor with the food and whatnot, the supplies. He's getting beat up badly, bro. He's getting beat up badly. So she's sitting there, right? She has a problem now. She has to make a choice. She thinks to herself, okay, I can easily go back and pretend like nothing happened. Nobody would know that I got caught, and it would be handy dandy. We'll go from there. Or there's another choice that she can make, and that is to make a run for it and escape. Just her and Matilda. Even leave Matilda here somewhere. But she's have a predicament. What should she do? So she looks around, there's nothing there, but it clicks. There's a horse. Oh yes, I can ride this horse, make my escape. Now, they mentioned how one of the foster families had a farm, and so she knows how to ride a horse, how to, do things around that. So she grabs Matilda, is like, we're going to the horse. She's like, what are you talking about? We were supposed to be Peter. She's like, Peter's no more, bro. We're on our own, and we're using that horse, and we're leaving. Matilda hesitates at first, but she knows it's now or never. We're about to get cooked. So they make a run for it. And as soon as they get there, bam, Matilda gets knocked out clean. It's lights out. Nighty-night for Matilda. She's gone. I mean, like, she's knocked out, not dead. She's knocked out. And there she is, the hater, Gertrude. She's like going somewhere. Oh my god, end of chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, chapter 23. Okay, so Gertrude stopped both of them, right? Gertrude is like, I saw you both sneaking away, so I took my chance. I'm not gonna let you escape. You are my escape. I'm gonna kill you, and Malak is gonna grant me my freedom. You're not getting out of here, you hear me? I am getting out of here. So they go back and forth. It's finally time for another round. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what, like, third time? Yeah, this is the third time of Sarah versus Gertrude. Who do you think will win? Okay, so they go back and forth, right? Gertrude swings at Sarah. She backs off. But she knows that this time she has to do something big to stop this. Otherwise, the animals have awoken, right? The animals are awake now. They're shouting. So eventually people will be here. Nurses will be here. Duggard will be here. They will get caught and they will be punished heavily. So she looks around. She sees an iron rod, right? She's like, this is my time. She grabs that, swings at her. Gertrude goes down. But as soon as she goes down, she swings the wood onto Sarah's feet. Sarah goes down. Next thing we know, Gertrude is on top of Sarah, starting to beat her, and she nearly chokes Sarah out once again. Sarah's looking for something. Blood is now on Sarah's face. She knows this is it. This is it, because this is coming with determination. Literally wants to kill Sarah for her freedom. She looks around, and finally she grabs the iron rod, and she stabs Gertrude. Gertrude finally goes down, and Sarah takes that iron rod again and slaps her even more and hard with all her power, so much so that finally Gertrude let go, falls to the ground, and it is over. She finally sees Sarah, Gertrude, dying. Sarah caught her second body, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second kill that she has. So she looks around. Stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's crazy. Malak finally appears, ladies and gentlemen. He's like, yes, you've done it. You have killed Gertrude. She's like, breathing hardly because she nearly got killed, choked out and whatnot. She's like, am I finally gonna get my freedom? Malak is like, of course. That was the deal, wasn't it? She's like, finally. Peter's plan didn't work, but Malak's plan worked. We are out here. Bam! Y'all did not expect that. Out came something sharp, pierced her from the back. She turned around. It was Matilda, ladies and gentlemen. Damn you, Matilda! She got caught off the plan. She sees Matilda and Malak standing, ladies and gentlemen. Both of them standing together. Matilda's like, I had to. Malak told me what you were about to do. Malak told me you was about to kill me. You wasn't gonna help me to the freedom. You was gonna kill me. Malak told me, and I've been keeping my eye on you. She had even kept that knife, the Gertrude's knife, back when they were fighting, all the way back in that kitchen area, right? She snuck that knife into her dress just so she could be using that for safekeeping. She had her suspicions, but it was finally confirmed when Malak told her. I told you there was back and forth, but this twist, I cannot believe. It's such a simple and obvious twist, but I did not see it coming, ladies and gentlemen. I did not see it coming. I'm walking, ladies and gentlemen. I'm walking from my chair because this twist got me, bro. I was like, no! She's dying. ladies and gentlemen. Sarah is dying. Malak is laughing there with the demon and whatnot. Matilda is standing there confused, but she had to. All that confidence that was built up by Sarah, that's the irony, ladies and gentlemen. She would have never done it if it wasn't for Sarah. That confidence was built by Sarah, and Matilda pulled that knife into Sarah. She goes down. Darkness is coming over her, ladies and gentlemen. She is dying, and she realized death would be her freedom, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for chapter 24. I'm going to take some time with chapter 24 because it is the final chapter of this story. I'm pretty sure this video is going to be like an hour and a half. I don't care. But this story is ridiculously important. Why? Because it kind of explains the canon of Dark Deception Universe. Now, again, I have made a separate notepad where I'm writing some of the points that explains the Dark Deception Universe, Dark Deception lore, and I'm also making another notepad that has Easter eggs from the book from, Dark Deception chapters 1 to 4 and whatnot. So there will be videos made on that, so don't worry about it. Anyways, okay, so after that sharp thing pierced through Sarah, she opens her eyes and it is a place foreign but familiar to her. So she sees endless hallways, she sees doors with plaques on it. You already know what time it is. It's a disaster out here, ladies and gentlemen. She looks to her side and she sees a woman, another girl, and she's like, what's going on? Where am I? And that woman says, what's happening? Where am I? Bam. Sarah recognized that immediately. It's Gertrude. She's like, you. And Gertrude's like, you. Where are we? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is confirmed. They are dead. Sarah mentions, I think we are dead. Remember, Sarah killed Gertrude and Matilda killed Sarah. And quickly Malak teased Sarah with the quick snippets of Matilda living her happy life in the streets of New York. She is now well clothed with a loving, I feel like a loving family at this point, and she looked happy and safe at the time. Remember, I don't know if it's 10 years or how long Malak made that deal with Matilda, but yeah, she's happy. And unfortunately for Gertrude and Sarah, they're both dead. But they don't have time to ponder over that because they are in the maze and they hear machinery and saw blades coming from behind. Sarah knows immediately what time it is, so she gets up and runs, and she tells Gertrude, it's Malak's monsters, you gotta go get up and run, otherwise you're gonna get got. She's like, don't tell me what to do. Sarah's like, okay then, well, it's your death. She runs, and Gertrude looks back. She sees not one, not two, ladies and gentlemen, 3 murder monkeys, literally called murder monkeys in the book, it's confirmed, running towards her. Gertrude gets up. She starts running. Remember, she's big, right? So she can't run that fast. Unfortunately for Gertrude, it is over for Gertrude, ladies and gentlemen, because she can't run that fast. Bam, she screams, Sarah! Before she could say, help me, Sarah looks back and sees one of the monkeys' blades running through Gertrude's body. Chest from behind, another one and another one. She is done for. Blood is coming out. It is all over. She's screaming, she is crying, but she is dying, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a painful or horrendous, torturous death. Remember, Gertrude is now dying twice. First by the hands of Sarah, and the other one by murder monkeys. And there's an art that I'll be playing on the screen as we speak. Shout out to Mr. for providing me all the illustrations from the book digitally so that y'all can see in HD. Again, shout out to Mr. Link will be in the description. But they mentioned here, and you can check out on your book on page number 186, where they explain how the souls are turned into purple shards. So now they mention here that as she's dying, she takes a form of crystal. She becomes a crystal. They said here that Gertrude began to harden into a purple glass. Delicate planes of crystal shifted across her body. Her face was frozen in horror and pain. You can see on the screen as we speak. They mention once again a monkey blade burst through the center of Gertrude's crystallized form, this time from within, shattering shards of crystal into every direction. Sarah's hands rose up to block the flying shards from cutting her face. A monkey had followed the blade, chomping on the shards of crystal, causing blood to drip down its sharp teeth as the monster broke fully from the crystal form. Yes, you are hearing that right, ladies and gentlemen. Gertrude, after getting bodied by murder monkeys, becoming a purple shard, then becoming crystal's forms and whatnot, she is now turned into one of the murder monkeys. She's now turned into a monster. Remember, in the beginning of the book, Malak mentions the weak souls, probably like Matilda, if she had died, she probably would have been just a purple soul shard. But since Gertrude is actually a little bit stronger soul compared to Matilda or some weaker souls, she's turned into a monster. That's what happens with souls in the dark realm. Gertrude is now turned into a murder monkey. It has been explained how souls are turned into soul shards. And yeah,
Gertrude locks eyes with Sarah. She knows it's Sarah, and she's thirsty now. And Gertrude, it's a sad moment a little bit. Gertrude looks at herself. She sees her monkey form and she sees her blades on her hands. It is kind of sad what happened here, but she rushes towards Sarah. And Sarah doesn't have time to stop and think and ponder. She starts to run. Gertrude chases her along the other monkeys, and Malak is laughing for his victory. Malak is laughing maniacally in the background. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the end of first story. It took 189 pages to finish one story, possibly an hour and a half long video for you guys. Now, this was such an amazing story. Now, I do read a lot of books, right? And I have read many FNAF books, Fazbear Fright, The Fourth Closet, Freddy Files, and Vince and Kelly, they've cooked something here tremendously. Off the back, I want to say 2 to 3 things. One thing I want to say, the story did set up nicely, but it kind of got into a rush mode starting chapter 16 and onwards, but I think it was bound to. And my point from earlier stays about the baker. Why was this baker so hard? Maybe they could have explained his life a little bit. It's a book, they could have done that, where in the court we could have spent more time where the baker's family would have been mentioning, hey, he's had a hard life and whatnot. Maybe that woman talking to the baker, maybe she might have explained something of why the baker was so harsh on her. Because remember, this all started with the baker. Baker's death is where it all started. And then, of course, I love that Vince kept Malak consistent throughout. His conniving and feeding off of their hopelessness, betrayal, desperateness, loneliness, guilt, shame. He's had it all. Malak had a full-blown meal with Sarah's life here, with Matilda, with Gertrude. And I want to say, the MVP of this story is easily Matilda, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that she just kind of sort of stayed one step ahead, which was to take the knife and just stay a little bit cautious as to, hold on a second, why would someone who didn't give me 1 second of her day all of a sudden is now protecting me and whatnot? And then she had a genuine question as to why would Gertrude, this big woman who started bullying me, stopped bullying me out of nowhere? Like, what is going on here? So she was clever in that. She also took Malak's deal. I don't know what is gonna happen to her after those 10 years. Is she's gonna also become a monster? She's gaining confidence, so she might not just become a soul shard at the end of her deal. It was a great, phenomenal story. For a first Dark Sim story, this was amazing. I don't think the second story is gonna top this for me personally, because I was so locked in with the characters and I was actually envisioning it, the whole story. And if they ever do a Dark Decision TV show or a movie, I want them to adopt this story specifically, because they've done it. And also, they have made me confident, ladies and gentlemen, that whenever we do get a movie or a TV show, Vince is gonna cook. He knows how to set these characters up. He knows how to set the stage up, suspense, thrill, drama. There was so much trust, love, betrayal. Oh my god, it had it all. This story had it all. I think this shows what Dark Decision could be moving forward. And I love that it's so different from Bendy books, FNAF books. It stands on its own. For me, Fourth Closet, even with all of its it being all over the place and whatnot, I still have such a soft spot for Fourth Closet. But Malak Archives House of Mischief is up there, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, what did you think of this story? Okay, so now we move to story number 2. If y'all are still watching, shout out to y'all. I don't know how long it is since in this video. I hope it's not that long, but if it is and you're still here, shout out to y'all. But we move to story number 2, A Gambler's Misfortune. The art of this is on your screen as we speak, as Malak talks to us about another file from his archives that he would love for us to see. Now here, before we get to the story, he talks about this young doctor, right? And you can see on the poster as well, the young doctor, he's a gambler. He has a bad addiction of gambling. Now, before the last story that we talked about, House always wins. Malak always wins. And he's like, this man is a fool. Off the back, he's not hiding. Malak is like, this man is a fool and he will lose because Malak's house will win. But I want to talk about this poster. Mannequins, what the heck are these mannequins doing, Malak? Malak is standing in front of these mannequins. There's Doctor. What? So let's talk about it. So chapter 1 begins with the lead of this second story. in this place. We don't know where it is. They talk about golden lava. It's scorching heat. At first I was like, is it Manor from Deadly Decadence? Because that also has lava and gold and whatnot. But then I was like, hold on a second. Because they talked about a red glowing door, I thought, wait a minute, is this Mascot Mayhem Zone 3? Because that has lava as well. Because here they're talking about scorching heat. So I don't know. But the main lead wakes up, talks about where am I? And he's confused. So he finally walks around, sees something. Around him is just pure darkness. So only thing he can do is move forward. He sees a red light glowing around the edges of a frame, and he slowly opens the door. So unlike story 1, we're gonna try to keep this very short. So Chapter 2, we're now in 1985 Argentina, and we are now greeted with the main lead of the story. Now, I said in Chapter 1, that happened, that's Chapter 1. We are probably and possibly going back to the past, leading up to the events of what happened in Chapter 1, right? How did our main lead got here? And who is our main lead anyway? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is Dr. John Wilson with his girlfriend, Letty. And so they're here in Argentina. What basically happened is that John is a gambler. He has a bad addiction of gambling. He picked it up. It's his downtime. He loves because of the rush, the adrenaline rush, right? He had won big in Las Vegas in gambling, and he wanted to spend all the money that he won. He was a surgeon, but he was in his second year of residency at the hospital. So he asked one of the other colleagues to take over so he can, have a week off to himself. So he gets this girl from Las Vegas, and then he flies her out to Argentina so that he can spend some off time. All of a sudden, he is waving money in front of the people, the hotel that he checked in. He's like, yo, I got money, I got cash, I got moolah. Where's the casino at? So there's this one bellman. He's like, it is here, but it's private. John is like, the freak are you talking about? Private? I got all the cash in the world. Tell them I got cash I want to spend. So Bellman's like, okay, I'll tell them. He got into this gambling way early in his life with a couple of rich kids. He had lost a bunch of times and huge losses, so he would have to ask his father to pay the losses and whatnot. So eventually his father expected better of him. He really did. And his response was, you're also someone who born with silver spoon, so how can you, stand there judge me? He didn't say that. I'm, summarizing the story and whatnot. But yeah, I'm only taking some time to set up his character so then we can move past to the events of what actually happened. So yeah, he's here, Dr. John Wilson, with his girlfriend, Letty. And Letty is like, yo, let's try to get to know each other. He's not having all that. He's not planning to stay with her for a long time anyway. So he's like, yeah, drinking alcohol. Nah, fam, it's a disaster out here. There will be some wolves around him that will take full advantage of this. But yeah, that's chapter 2. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so in this next chapter, things pick up pace. Here he is on the same night in this private party, right? He's there showing off his wealthy clothes, cologne, cigar, money. He's out here and they see him. And so he finally gets to pay a lot of price just to play at this private party. So there's only 2 people. There's a fat man, there's another man, and then there's him, right? So they started playing and whatnot. They also started drinking as well, but John knows to keep himself a little bit on the edge in these kind of scenarios because big money is at play, right? So they're playing, one of the men falls, and it's now the 2. Out of nowhere, right, they hear gunshots, and bam, you will be seeing the illustration on the screen as we speak. Again, shout out to Mr. for providing me these digital HD pictures and whatnot. But yeah, these gunmen out of nowhere, right, they are now into this casino, this private party. I keep thinking it's a casino, right, but they're here, weapons, bro. Guns, mags, AK-47, we don't know the exact gun types, but they're there, all of them. John and the other fat guy, they're squished together. He's British, by the way, and they think to themselves, okay, what do we do here? John is like, it's a casino, rich people, they're gonna take and they're probably gonna leave. So they go around, collect wallets, gold, whatever they can find, but when they get to these 2, they see the identification of, well, because, John gives his identification, wallet and whatnot. He's like, that's all I have. They gave this one of the other gunmen, and he's like, yep, they speak in Spanish, but they're like,
we're gonna take these two because one is from London, the other one is American, what I believe to be, right? At first, the other London guy, the British guy, he's like, please don't, but they slap him hard. John is like, you gotta play along, otherwise we're both gonna get got. They take them outside into this big truck. There was another person in the casino. Again, I'm just gonna keep calling it a casino. He didn't cooperate with these guys and he got shot. So John knew they were not playing around. As always, the British guy once again yapping and crying and screaming and begging. So the gunman smack the weapon on his head. He goes out, nice out. Same thing goes for John. That's the end of chapter. Let's move on. Okay, so in the next chapter, they are taken to this mansion, like a rich place. I keep thinking it's Manor from Deadly Decadence. That's the same thing I thought in the first story. It was not. So the same thing it's gonna be here. It's not Mansion from Deadly Decadence. I don't think it's even a place or location from Dark Deception. I feel like we're gonna get to that location's actual location. That's why we got from the matron and Reaper nurses from Torment Therapy when she was in the Nightmares era. I believe same thing is gonna happen here when we do get to Nightmares of John. We do get to see Manor and whatnot. But anyways, here, this British guy, whose name is revealed to be Peter Thomas, and John Wilson. They are taken to this by a young man, led by this young man who is probably the leader of this gang, of the gunmen, not the entire gang, to this mansion, back into this office. There is a giant man who is the real boss of this entire operation, rich and whatnot. He's smoking a cigar and he's like, you guys, the two of you, are of use to me. Peter Thomas, you're the only reason you're here because your family's rich, you're an attorney, and I need that money. So we'll negotiate for your release, take him to the next room. But for you, John Wilson, you are a surgeon and I need that. Walk with me. They walk into this room, right? Room after room. And then there are a bunch of people on these hospital beds. He's like, what is this, makeshift hospital? They're like, some of these people are brain dead, others were sold to me. You know exactly where this is going, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, these are the people who were sold to the cartel. Why am I laughing? That is not funny. The boss, whose name is Valdez, he wants John to be, first of all, his doctor and then harvest organs from these people and put into other, or just sell them for whatever Valdez wants at this point. So basically John is cooked because he's the doctor and the previous doctor didn't follow the Valdez instruction and he's dead. So that's what you're gonna do. Okay, so chapter 5 takes us back to chapter 1 ending. Remember when this story began, our main protagonist John, or the second lead here, is in this nightmare place, right? He doesn't know where he is, but now it is confirmed in chapter 5 that it is Nightmare Realm, and he is literally outside Deadly Decadence, well, inside Deadly Decadence. So we would only assume, and thanks to Mr. for this theory, they believe that the place John was at in chapter 1 of the story was the portal, the hallway. So Mr. believe, because I've been talking to him back and forth as I was reading this, I needed somebody to talk to about this, but they believe it was a portal hallway, right? And he believes it might change in Enhanced Plus. Anyways, now we're here in Deadly Decadence because it is literally the start of Deadly Decadence. He sees the statue, the fountain, he sees the stairs, the gate. He pours his hand into the water and it is excruciating pain came to him because of course it is not just water. We know what happens. We're gonna just let it play along for now, right? So he goes through one door and another door and he sees the statues, and when he gets to this maze he's like, damn it, because it's a maze. He hears the Gold Watchers laugh. It's confirmed, by the way, it's Nightmare Realm and whatnot, and he looks back and he looks at the maze. He's like, shizzle pizzle. End of chapter, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so in this next chapter, they are now next day eating, and before they get to the breakfast, John is cleaning himself up in the bathroom, taking shower and whatnot, and he's basically reminiscing about his past, his life. I talked about how he didn't like his father because his father never approved anything of him, never approved anything he had done, but he was regretting that what I wouldn't do to see my father once again, even him, you know, being angry and whatnot. And they also mentioned about his mother, Cheryl, and he's thinking, oh my god, even though they'd be like, we have to help this kid once again, he's nothing but trouble to us, but he would love and die to see his parents once again. He's thinking about Letty, the woman he left, well, didn't left, but he had with him in Argentina, in that hotel, after winning in Las Vegas and whatnot. So he's reminiscing about him, everything. But here we are. We're eating. Thomas, John, and Valdez. Valdez is showing off once again with food for a dozen people, but only 3 of them are eating. And here they mentioned that Thomas is like, the funds are already transferred, so I'll be going then soon. I'm a very busy man. This has been a nuance, he says. And Valdez is like, of course, as soon as your funds are transferred, you will be escorted out of here. You will be free. And John looks at Valdez and he sees that I've dealt with these kind of men before. They are not to be trusted and they will not hold their end of the bargain. And I know Thomas will die. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? He's a lawyer. This man is going to go, he probably not going to care about John and whatnot, but you cannot let this man go alive if you are Valdez. But yeah, Valdez is like, okay, John, enough eating. It's time to do your work. So the other young man, who is a scarred man, we're going to call him Scarred Man, escorts John to this other makeshift hospital. There, Valdez told him that you will have a nurse who will help you with all the medical stuff and whatnot. An older woman, basically. That nurse was an older woman. Her name is Maria. We're going to call her Maria. And she's like, I've been doing this for a while. Follow me. So they go, and this man who's brain dead, he needs help thoroughly. His organs are to be taken out. He's like, oh my God, help me. End of chapter. Okay, so in this next chapter, right, the surgeon, John Wilson, our main lead, the second lead, out here doing the surgery with Maria. They successfully do it, harvest the organs that are needed, preserve them in the freezer and whatnot, and after that they pull him out of the life support and John pronounced the man dead. But he thinks to himself, I cannot be doing this every single day. So he asks Maria, like, come on, you gotta help me out here. I'm rich, I'm an American, bro, I have rights. But she's like, what are you talking about? So he's like, I can pay you, right? Maria's like, hold on, how much are we talking about? He's like, oh, wait a minute. She can do it? Okay. I can pay you a lot. My father is rich. He's like, $100,000. John thinks to himself, oh, shizzle, that's a lot, but I can ask the father, and I'll probably have to pay him back, but at least I'll be back home safely. He's like, okay, I'll pay you as soon as I get to America, as soon as I get there, as soon as I get back home. She's like, okay, there's someone who can help you. He's like, okay, I'll pay you and the other person. What do I have to do? That person ain't no man. He's El Diablo. They didn't say El Diablo. They did say Diablo, but they didn't say El Diablo. But basically, he's talking about the devil, right? So she says, you will get back home and you will send me the money. Whatever you need, you'll have in your room. She goes back, okay, he has hope now. So they go back, eat the dinner, and Valdez is like, good job, but we got a lot more to do. So gather up some energy. John is like, I can't be doing this. I need you to promise me once I'm done, you'll be sending me back home. You know, Valdez didn't like that. He asked the scarred man to intimidate him. So he pulls out a small holster gun, and put it on his head. John is like, okay, you got it. Basically, Valdez is just showing off at this point. All John has to do is just playing along, just like Sarah did. These two stories have so much in common. We'll talk about it at the end. But yeah, it's a nighttime, and once he gets to the showers, he sees a bag, right? And in this bag, there are a bunch of things. And I want to talk about this a little bit because it actually shows how this is done. They talked about it in this first story, but they actually went into a little bit more details. They say here that he pulled out a thick black candle, matches, a bag of white grain that looked like salt, a slim wrapped scroll, and a small leather book. So these were the ingredients that are needed if you want to summon Malak, but don't do it, bro. He's the devil. So he does. At first, he's like, I knew this is witchcraft and whatnot. Hey, she's playing me. I ain't doing it. So he opens the book. He sees it's the same thing as Sarah. The symbols, foreign language, changes into symbols and whatnot. He drops the book. He's like, this is witchcraft. I ain't doing it, right? So he goes back to the shower. He completes the shower, but when he comes back, it catches his attention once again. So it's like, okay, what do I have to lose? He sees those foreign word symbols turn into actual, like, readable English, just like with Sarah and Rebecca, right? And he follows the steps and he does the chanting 3 times, and bam, there it is. Malak is here. He has summoned the demon. I like it. This time we are not wasting that much time because we already know it's Malak, so they don't waste much time in the book. Anyways, let's move to the next chapter. Oh, and by the way, earlier in the story they mentioned about the gluttony, because in the previous story they talked about hopelessness, betrayal, despair. So here we're talking about gluttony and now desperation. So these are the things that, you know, hype Malak up. It turns him on. So that's why he is here for it. Anytime when a soul who is worthy and having these sorts of emotions and feelings, he will be there. But anyways, okay, ladies and gentlemen, so Malak is here. He has summoned Malak, and he's here, scanned all of John's life and talking, and he reveals that you're a gambling man, you're a surgeon looking for your father's approval. Yeah, you've gambled yourself into this situation, my boy. But I have a deal for you. I can help you get out of this mess. Again, the same deal he gave to Sarah, he gave to John as well. 10 years for your freedom. And I feel like, and again, we're gonna have separate theories for chapter 5 and whatnot, but I feel like that kind of sort of confirms that, because in chapter 4, Barely Buried, Doug Hauser was given the same deal. I feel like we should be able to play that ending in chapter 5 where Doug Hauser takes the deal and have reunited with Tammy and Clarissa Elise Hauser for 10 years of freedom. Well, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But anyways, John here says 10 years? That's it? And Malak is like, okay, you twisted my arm. You want to negotiate? 7 years it is. John is like, okay, 7 years it is. But what do I have to do? Malak is like, simple. All you gotta do is kill, sacrifice, and don't get cute. I don't need those brain dead people that you're harvesting, those people in that makeshift hospital. Don't do that. I don't need those. I need fresh souls. Souls who are fresh. Use your imagination, use your instruments, use your fancy thingy, but I need that soul. You got it? So they have a deal, ladies and gentlemen. But there's one line that Malak says is so funny. He says, when Malak was accusing John of killing people in his own hospitals, you know, losing patients and whatnot, John is like, no, I've lost patients. I don't kill them. I heal them for goodness sake. Malak says, so you say, Dr. John Wilson, doth protest too much, methinks. I love the consistency that they have with Malak, ladies and gentlemen. Malak character in this whole book, he never disappoints, bro. He never disappoints. Anyways, but yeah, they have a deal. Okay, probably the most important chapter in all of the books, because Phantom Malak makes an appearance here, because we are now back into the Nightmare Realms where John is in the first zone of deadly decadence. He's seeing the traps, right? And he finally encounters the Gold Watcher. He looks back, they move and whatnot. It is perfectly tailor-made for a TV show. If they ever will make a TV show, this is the book that they should adapt. There's another book, so most likely we will get the other levels from chapters 1 to 5. I say 1 to 5, but most likely 1 to 4. I do say 1 to 5 because Mannequins are in here. So, but we're going off topic here. Malak actually explains two things. Number one, the moral concepts of hell, like how mortal thinks about hell and what is actually going on in the dark realm, nightmare realms, and also how souls, you know, turn into monsters and soul shards, and how soul's concept works in the nightmare realm. Basically, some have trauma and they go completely insane and become monsters, as you've seen, crazy, intelligent, less monsters. And one of the main reasons for it mentioned and revealed in this book is because of their memories. Their thoughts are all over the place. If they could just gather it just like John did one by one, they can actually make sense of the situation. And Malak does explain a little bit more. If you ever seen the show The Good Place, where basically when somebody dies, I'm trying to explain the show, it's a fiction show. When somebody dies, they go to this place, right? And there's this, let's call him the curator or a host, right? And his job is to make heaven and hell for people who deserve to go either or, right? If they're in hell, his job is to make the punishment as punishable and as scary, violent as possible. And if they're in heaven, his job is to make them feel at home, at ease, and basically make it as, you know, good as possible. That's kind of sort of the vibe that I'm getting, but Malak here is, of course, the demon, the devil. His job is to make, you know, souls' lives for eternity, because he mentions later that you're mine for eternity. But John mentions, wait a minute, I made a deal with you. What happened? Malak is like, oops, you messed up. You didn't seal the deal. It happens from time to time. There are no guarantees. So he's like, what now? Like, how can I get out of here? She's like, wait, you're seriously in hell, in my hell, that you're mine now forever, for eternity? You're seriously asking to make another deal? So basically, to trim it down, that's why you don't make a deal with Malak, because you get your limited few years of freedom, which Malak does mention here, that I don't know why mortals want freedom for a very small time, but then their souls are mine for the rest of eternity, and I do whatever I please with them. And that's where we are in this situation. So yeah, insane, and a very massive chapter. So as soon as Phantom Malak comes back to attack him, he puts his hands up, everything goes to black. nightmare ends. So we need to figure out what went wrong and how we can do this right. Oh yeah, one more thing I completely forgot. The scarred young man who seemed to be the kind of sort of leader in the field operations for these gunmen was named Julio. I'm sorry. Okay, so before we get confused, scarred man, I keep confusing the two. They're two different men, right? The scarred man, his name was Pedro, and there was another young man who his name was Julio. That Julio was standing when they were eating dinner, but Pedro is the scarred man. He's a different one. Okay, so don't get this confused. Two different people. Okay, so we are now halfway through the story. Yes, I have finally learned how to do these book story summarizations. Forget the first story the way I've done it. It was fire story anyway, but now I've actually got a grasp on how to do these book videos from now on. Anyways, in this chapter, ladies and gentlemen, which is halfway through the story, John is all over the place. His mind is all over the place. He's like, what is happening? He's going into the nightmare realms, waking up in the real world. Days are going by. He's harvesting organs from these brain-dead people. When I say brain-dead, they're literally like the brain is dead. It has died. So he's going through, he's like, I need more exercise. I need more food because this is all over the place. So he talks to Valdez and he's like, I need some books. And he's like, Valdez is asking him, hey, do I need to give you more work? What are you talking about? Do you have time to read? He's like, no. My mind is fried. I need to unwind it so I can work better. He's like, okay, you have impressed me so far. I'll give you the books, but don't try to get cute. Just get Valdez out of here at this point. He doesn't intimidate me anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Matter of fact, Pedro and Julio, they intimidate me more because they are the gunmen. And actually, Julio jumped in with the freaking joke. He said, like you have any of the jokes. They both laughed. Get slapped up, bro. If I was there the first day, I probably would have took the gun, started killing. I probably would have killed Valdez, and then probably would have gotten shot and probably had died, but at least I would have killed cartel, bro. You can't say that every day. No, I wouldn't have. Don't kidnap me, please. Okay, so another body comes in with Maria and she gives him the file. He reads, but the file doesn't say much. It says John Doe. It is listed John Doe, but he's like, who is he? And then it dawns on him. It is a Peter Thomas, that British guy, ladies and gentlemen. I told y'all, I told you he's not gonna let him go. Peter overplayed his hand, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think one of the reasons that he kidnapped him was to harvest his organs, I believe, at the same time getting the ransom from the family. So he's got 2 for 1. So John lost it. He's like, I'm not doing this. It was part of the deal for him to be left to leave Argentina, go back to his family. I need to speak to Valdez. He's lost it completely because the sudden realization is that there is no escape from this. He will never be able to leave. Once Valdez is done with his work, he's probably going to kill him as well. So John is all blinded by the anger and whatnot. So he starts shouting, throwing things around. Gunman comes in. He starts to throw instruments at him, the medical instruments. Another guy comes in and they start beating him. So much so that he feels another pinch on his neck. And it is Maria who pulls a syringe into his neck. It's a nighty-night. It is not going well for our boy John. Now, both of these stories, I think with John you could argue a little bit, but even then, both Sarah, mostly Sarah because he was 16 years old, and John, they kind of don't deserve all of this. And it kind of paints a picture of how they had time to not make a deal, and if they had just waited out, they could have probably, the first story, they could have made it out. I don't know if they hadn't made a deal with Malak. I don't know, but it's crazy. Let's move on. Okay, so it's been a few days gap for me as well, but here we are at chapter 11, the most important chapter for this story specifically. So now we are a few days after what has happened in the previous chapter, and Valdez has locked our boy John, he's not our boy, but he locked John in for punishing him. You know what has happened, transpired after John saw that he had to harvest Thomas's organs and whatnot. So he's been locked in. There was no water in the bathroom or to do anything. There was nothing in his room, so he was being punished, right? So John was kind of losing his mind. And in his room, he was trying to build a weapon from what he has, seen in the prison documentaries and whatnot, but it wasn't that good. His mouth was dry because he hadn't drank anything for days. Losing his mind, he sits on the floor with his back to the wall, and the door opens slowly. He sees outside, right? And he's like, wait a minute, is this a punishment? Is this a trap? He looks around, nothing, nobody's there. So he's like, this might be it. Is Maria here to save me? He peeks outside, sees nobody. He starts walking down the hallway. He's like, bro, a guard catches me, it's so over for me. But there's no guard up there. Except when he walks around the kitchen area, he saw Pedro. Pedro sleeping, bro. Okay. This is his time to shine. He makes a run for it to the kitchen. The reason he goes to the kitchen is to find some knife and whatnot. All the drawers are locked. Valdez is smart. Okay, this plan doesn't work. He looks around for an exit. He does find an exit outside. Now that takes him outside the mansion. So now he's outside. But the fences are so high that he cannot climb it. He thinks and he clicks that he can go to the medical area where he was, doing the thingy. He knows the code, so he put the code in, goes into the medical area, and now he is in the makeshift hospital. But nobody's there. All these bodies on the beds and whatnot with their faces covered up. He moves around, and then out of nowhere, right, on the page 290, you can check it out for yourself. This is the most important point. Somebody twitches. Yep, they twitch, and he sees a figure. I say figure because it's not a human. A figure sit up, and that figure is none other than the Red Mannequins, ladies and gentlemen. Red freaking Mannequins have made their entry into this book. This is our actually first kind of sort of, well, not look, but first, thingy to these Red Mannequins in lore. So he sees as he gets scared and start to move around, and he kind of jerks himself a little bit, and he sees as he gets back from the shock, the mannequins on these all other beds, they start to get up as well. He sees the pointy fingers, the pointy face, the pointy feet. It's a disaster out here, ladies and gentlemen. And the more he moves, I believe we got our first kind of sort of hint at the ability of these mannequins, but he starts to run. Why? Because those red mannequins on their fours, and they start to crawl, ladies and gentlemen. So one thing is confirmed, that these red mannequins at least will crawl, unlike the other white mannequins. I believe the white mannequins will have a different ability where they could walk and run and whatnot, but these red mannequins, they start crawling. I believe it's going to be similar to Chaotic Cosmo. Again, we're going to have a separate video explaining these mannequins' abilities, what has been revealed and whatnot, but yeah, they start to chase him. He starts to run, ladies and gentlemen, and he goes to the outside. The fence is there. The mannequins are chasing him fast on they're crawling. Of course they'll be fast. He climbs up the fence. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, they're too quick and stab. Yes, mannequins with their pointy fingers, they stab John in the gut. It's so over, bro. But wait, he wakes up in his nightmare. That was a nightmare, ladies and gentlemen. He sees his gut. It's still there. But now he's having flashback. He doesn't know what's real because he's going back and forth. Like the flashes of red mannequins is like flashing before his eyes. But then he's in this bathroom. It's a mess. John is losing it. But yeah, mannequins were kind of cool. So now it's been a few days, and this man is going in and out because he hadn't ate anything. He's dehydrated, right? He's starving. He's hungry. He's becoming very thin, and he's losing his consciousness. His heart is slowly kind of sort of dying at this point. So he crawls himself to the floor, starts to tap on the door. Nobody opens, and as soon as his vision begins to blur even more, the darkness starts to come up and creep up. Somebody opens the door, a shadow. We don't know who that is. End of chapter. Let's move on. So the next chapter, ladies and gentlemen, he barely gains consciousness, and it sees an IV and fluids going into his veins. He looks around, and bam, and he starts to get scared. Am I the next donor, ladies and gentlemen? And John is like, am I the next donor? Because he's in that same patient area. He yanks out the IV. Blood is, coming out of his knuckles and whatnot. Maria's like, slow down, calm down. She brings the food, the, soup and jello. And he's like, what, am I next? Is Valdez gonna take my organs out next? She's like, no, you silly. He likes you, but you did betray him. So you need to be careful and chill out. They didn't have this kind of conversation. What kind of lame conversation was that? So he starts, yamming on the soup and jello because he hadn't ate in weeks. Maria reveals it's been over 2 weeks since you've been logged, and now it's been a week since you've been here. So you need to get your energy and get back to work. But Maria asks him, what about the deal with the devil? Are you still doing it? Like, what are you doing? You made the deal with the devil. She's like, yeah, I did. She's like, then what are you waiting for? You know what you need to do. Do it. He's like, I'll wait for the right time, and when the time is right, and I will know when the time is right, I'll do it. She's like, oh, we will see. She didn't believe him. But we will see. As Julio takes John to Valdez, and he's sitting there, he's like, long time no see. You look thin, doctor. And they have a back and forth where he's playing a little cautious. He's like, I understand, I've learned my lesson, I'll do what it takes. Alright, I'll do your surgeries. He's like, well, where's my apology? You didn't apologize. He's like, well, I did see someone that trusted you, you betrayed him, and your word meant nothing. And they have a back and forth, but he knows he needs to play along, bide his time, do what needs to be done. That's the only way he can survive and be out of here. So in the next chapter, he starts to brew a plan. He's like, I can't take a scalpel from the medical area back to my room because, of course, they pat down every time he leaves. So he thinks of a creative way. He kind of sort of cuts the jeans from the side so that he can just put that in there just so the guards can't, see and whatnot, because he knows he just harvested Thomas's organ, which was of no good other than some skin and a little limbs and eyes, which wouldn't help Valdez make that kind of money. So he knows his time is nearly up with Valdez because he already tested his patience, betrayed him a little bit, not really. The interesting thing that kept playing in John's mind is that Valdez said Thomas has seen too much. Right? He knows about the compound, he's seen my face, so it's only obvious that John's time is next because he knows a hell of a lot more than what Thomas knew. So he's like, okay, it is time to give Malak his soul, get that deal, and 10 years of freedom. One step at a time. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, for chapter 15. Okay, so this next chapter is crazy because we are back in the nightmare realm. This time, ladies and gentlemen, we enter the mall. Yes, it has finally happened on page number 300 something, but the abandoned mall is finally here. Again, we will be making a pretty lengthy video about the mall, the mannequins, because they explain this mall very clearly and it gives us an idea and picture of what we will see in this mall. The way they mentioned it looks like a tornado hit the mall, so we're kind of getting a mall lore as well. But John here sees white mannequins, ladies and gentlemen. So white mannequins also make an appearance. We already saw red mannequins, but white mannequins here, unlike the red mannequins who look like ready to attack and whatnot, they're just white mannequins. They're scattered, broken body parts, right? Some of them broken, some don't have hands, others don't have faces, some have few body parts, others don't, so they're scattered around the mall. And we see the food court, we see all these other stuff. It's really clean. And then John sees a mask. I'm gonna come to that mask in just a second, but he sees a mask, he thinks it's Malak's, and he puts it in his pocket or his waistband something, and he walks around, right? And then he sees this black figure with a hood with multiple masks of agony, fear, and whatnot on his chest and the attire. And that figure, that black hooded figure, had a cape, ladies and gentlemen. Yep, it was Puppet King, ladies and gentlemen. Before he met Puppet King, he does two things which I find funny, but it's a nod to Silent Hill, ladies and gentlemen. One, he does the famous James falling to his knees and screaming loudly. He does that in the mall. He lets all of his emotions out. That's the first thing he did, which was, call back to Silent Hill 2. But also, he finds this rod from one of the mall broken areas, and he takes a rod, starts swinging so he can have a feel for it, and now he has a weapon. So, could it be that this is a hint towards us using weapons against mannequins? We don't know, because we did talk about us getting weapons. Of course, it's not like whilst we are collecting soul shards we're gonna get weapons. That would be weird, but maybe we're gonna get weapons just before the boss fight. I don't know, but weapons against mannequins or weapons against enemies in chapter 5 in general, that might be a theme. And yeah, he finally locks in eyes with Puppet King. The Puppet King and they both stare at each other for a very long time. Finally, he makes a move, but as soon as he makes a move, he hears something scattering around him, and he looks back. The white mannequins quickly turns into red mannequins with pointy figures, heads, and whatnot. He looks to the front. Puppet King has his hand up, the right hand up, and all of the mannequins in the mall starts shifting into red mannequins, and they form this giant monstrous centipede. Again, this is gonna be so crazy talking about it in chapter 5 series and whatnot, but they form a giant centipede, starts crawling, and because all these mannequins, they've kind of sort of formed and merged together, and now they're chasing after John. He's done for. What the freak that rod weapon is gonna do? Nothing, bro. Nothing. He runs. Okay, so in this next chapter, things are already starting off differently. Usually he sits and eats with Valdez, but this time Valdez is not there. He's eating alone. Everybody is in a rush mode. And he goes to the medical area and asks Maria what's going on. She reveals that it's party and Valda's father is coming. He's like, what? He has a father? How old could that man be? So he's like, this is my time to shine. I'm gonna take some life tonight. So he plans. At first he leaves his scalpel back in his room, which was a mistake, but she's like, you gotta do it. Okay, so he goes back in his room. They are sent back early, right? And they were told, well, he was told that he was going to get dinner in his room. Okay, so he's like, this is time. He holds the scalpel. Alright, so he has the weapon in his hip. And he's still standing there waiting. So he hears the knock. And comes out this young boy wearing the vest. He's like, what? This is an easy kill for me. Okay, he closes the door and quickly grabs the young boy. And he starts begging. Por favor, please do not kill me. And Guild starts hammering down on John. He's like, oh god, this man is innocent. I can't kill him. So he knocks him out and hides his body. Okay, he takes his vest. Now he's gone to plan B, which is to find a new body. So he takes his vest and starts disguising himself amongst the catering crew. Okay, so he finds another staff, but before he could get his hand on him, the staff went to the room full of people. There was Valdez, and before Valdez could spot him or his men, okay, he goes back to the other area. This area, he sees a woman with a flowery dress. He's like, okay, I might kill this woman, but this woman is Maria. Okay, his mind is pacing back and forth. Time is running out. He grabs her from behind, lock her and himself in a room, right? He has the scalpel to her neck. And she's like, of all the times you could do something now and you chose me as your sacrifice, you idiot, what are you doing? He's like, I don't have any other option. I'm taking matters into my own hands. So he's like, okay, then face me, you coward. While you do it, that was his mistake. Before he could react to anything, she brings something woodsy and powder or something, and she blows that powder into John's face. John is out. Yes, he is out for. She's like, you idiot, I warned you. You crossed me. I was the one who was trying to help you. Yarambe. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So in this chapter, things take a dark turn for our boy, John. Now, of all the people he could have messed with, he chose the wrong one, because now when he wakes up, well, his eyes open, he's laying on this floor and somebody's doing some witchcrafting. It is Maria. He messed with the wrong one, ladies and gentlemen. Yep, he cannot move. He's paralyzed. Whatever she did, it paralyzed him completely. He can't speak, he can't move, but he can feel anything and everything, ladies and gentlemen. The worst part is, ladies and gentlemen, he reveals that cops raided the compound and they got Valdez and his men. Basically, Valdez's father turned on him and handed him over to the authorities so that the father could live out peacefully for the rest of his time, also the rest of the time that he has left. Maria reveals how unfortunate John really was in this situation. Well, not unfortunate, he gambled and kind of lost. The police would have found an American against his will. He would have been a free man, ladies and gentlemen. He would have been a free man. All he had to do was just wait, maybe bide his time. If he hadn't made the deal with Demon, the Malak, if he had just stayed in his room, cop raided the Valdez compound, they got him and would have freed him. He would have been a free man, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, the young boy that John knocked out helped actually Maria get John's body out of the compound to Maria's home. And now she has done the witchcraft. She starts chanting, and she brings the knife, or this giant, you can see on the screen as we speak, and she starts cutting him in pieces, his organs, his insides, and he's feeling every moment of it. It is a terrible, one of the worst ways a man could die. Cuts his insides and starts tugging it, bro. At one point, she was even tugging his heart, literally. He was in excruciating pain. A pain no one should go through, a pain like no other. He was still alive, begging, help, asking for any plea. Why him? Why all of this? And then he was gone. Dead, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so now we are actually in the second last chapter. John is dead. In the real world, he has died. One of the worst deaths a human could possibly experience. But he's dead, thanks to Maria. That was her ticket to the freedom, temporarily, because he will be coming back here in the dark realm for eternity. But we digress, because John is dead in the nightmare realms. Okay, so he's back into the night realms, this time literally, because, you know, he's died there. Now his soul has been transferred here, and he's still running from that mannequin centipede, right? And this time he goes to the second floor of the mall and he still sees them chasing after him. So he's looking for a way out, but then he sees the storefronts have this handle door and whatnot in the back. So he runs towards it, finally opens, locks himself in. It's an office, so he used the desk chair to lock and make it as a barrier. But they're on the door, right? The worst part is it's not like mannequins would kill him and he would be dead. No, they would torture him, start, tugging out his organs, guts and whatnot. It would be torture, right? That's the worst part. But he feels something. And he sees that it was the mask that he hid in the waistband. That mask is warm and vibrating. So he's like, so help me then. He puts on the mask. He sees the red flashes. And that mask forms on his face, skin. He starts screaming. We move to the final chapter. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we are in the last chapter of the book and the story as well. So, in this chapter, ladies and gentlemen, after putting on that Puppet King's mask, he's transformed and he's transported into this wormhole, and after this wormhole he's now in this kind of sort of zone 2 of the mall where everything is so different now. I mean, it's still offices, it's still conference rooms, but not really, because now these conference rooms and offices, they have blood, torn places, bones, skulls, giant, formed into giant mountains and whatnot. So I feel like we're getting a good look at what this mall is going to look like in Dark Deception Chapter 5, but we digress, right? He's looking around, going around, trying to find something, anything, right? And he hears somebody running from the opposite direction towards him, and then he hides, but it's a human. He looks around and sees this human, kind of sort of handsome man, as the book says it, and he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, what are you doing? I'm trying to run from monsters. What are you doing? And he's like, I'm doing the same. Do you know any way out of here? He's like, I don't know, but let's try to get together and find a way out of here. Is there an elevator, staircase, maybe something we can use to get out of here? He's like, perfect. My name is John. He's like, I'm Xavier. Let's do this. So we got this new duo, right? And as they're walking, Xavier's walking in front because he's like, I've just came from that side. You do not want to go there. Let's go to check out this other side. So John is walking behind him and he notices, he's like, hold on a second. He says, I've been running from this monster. This place has blood everywhere. Literally blood spilling, ladies and gentlemen, from these bones, skulls and whatnot, the carpets. It's a disaster. But this guy's too clean. What are you doing? He stops and it dawns on him. Xavier stops as well. He moves his face towards the left and he's like, what gave me away? John is like, you're too clean. He's like, okay, fair enough. Out of nowhere, this guy Xavier transformed. He starts transforming. Explained here in very explicit details, ladies and gentlemen. This Xavier person, it's not a person. He transforms out of this human shape in multiple phases. There is a spider pig, a hog, they call it so much, but main point, it transforms into a blob with the faces, with the talons and spider-like, hog, pig-like shape. What? Oh my god, it was revealed, ladies and gentlemen, that this is the monster of this mannequin mall area. The blob is in holiday horror? What? We don't know. It's not a theory time, but this blob monster who has this face but not kind of skin like human, not really kind of like structure, it's a blob. The book mentioned it as a blob, as a spider pig, as a hog. They're trying to explain it so that we understand it a little bit better, but it's a blob, make no mistake, with talons, with hands, and it stretches out so far. This is a huge place. It's a huge place where things are going like mountain size and whatnot. Think of Barely Buried Zone 3, I feel like. But yeah, they have a back and forth. He's like, Malak gave me this place, and he gave me you. He gave me you, and I will devour you. I am hungry. Get your skin out here. Let me taste you. He didn't say that. That was freaky. Why would Blob be freaky, bro? What are you doing? But he was freaky, bro, because he was toying with him. John really pleads and begs, but it's so over. And he says, the mask was supposed to help me. What happened? The Blob Xavier reveals it was Malak's relic, one of Malak's relics, and that man starts to devour John, limb by limb, piece by piece. And as he's devouring, John sees Malak standing there waving his hand. Malak says something interesting. He says, you looking for this mask? Yeah, it would have been useful a couple minutes ago before you got into this situation, but then again, it's not your fault you lost it. And remember, John, my house always wins. That's the end, ladies and gentlemen. That is the end of the story. That is the end of the book. There's literally nothing after this. It says the end, and then the book ends. So clap it up, ladies and gentlemen. Clap it up for this amazing and insane book. This insane journey that not only this book, but this whole experience took us through. I see the hype for the second story personally. Again, I've only talked to like 3 people in total who read the book before me, and they were all hyping this second story. I feel like they were hyping the second story because of Mannequins in specific. I'm gonna come to my review in just a second, but I want to talk about John and his story. It is unfortunate. It is very sad because he's been here for so long. He kind of sort of took his chances here and there, but they didn't plan out and they didn't pan out the way he wanted. In both stories, if we see, we're gonna come back to the first story again as well, but in both stories, if they had just let things play out, not making the deal with the devil, they probably would have kind of sort of worked out a way to their freedom, basically. But making the deal with the demon, devil, Malak in this case, it's always a no. So now you know, do not be making that mistake. Do not be making no deals with the freaking Malak, because even if you have some limited years of freedom in your real world, your soul is kind of sort of booked to him for eternity. We're talking eternity. Sarah, Gertrude, and this John is gonna have to go through for eternity. Every time they die, they come back. Well, they don't die because it's, it's eternity. So that scares and spooks the heck out of me. You do not want to mess with the demon. So yeah, there's a lot at play here, but John's story summarized, it's like he was doing something wrong. It was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, literally. All the time he was thinking about getting back his father, all the times he was gambling and whatnot. It talked about it in the book. None of it mattered at the end. By the end, none of it really mattered. All the time he had a fight with his parent, he would do anything to hear his father be angry at him, just see his mother one more time, to see that woman that he left, Letty, all that, just to have his life back, just to be appreciated and be appreciated. What a disaster these both stories were for the main characters and whatnot. This one far more vicious, vile, violent, and John had been dealt the worst hand. It was made far worse when he made the deal with the devil. Should have never trusted Maria. And I have some gripes about the story, like I had with the first one as well, but I feel like this story was rushed a lot more than the first story was rushed. I think first story was played almost like it was almost had a balance, but this story went all over the place. I feel like it started off very well. The pacing was nice, but I feel like when they got after chapter 11, it just was all over the place. Valdez's consistency was not it, bro. He was not menacing. They should have had him cut someone in front of John and showed how brutal Valdez really is, how brutal the cartel leader really is, because they keep hyping up Pedro, they keep hyping up Julio, but we never actually get to see them in action, like what they're actually capable of. The most we got was Thomas, and his organs were to be harvested out by John himself. That is the most we got. So as a story on its own, standing on its merit, I feel like this one was far weaker in terms of putting when you put everything together of the story, the content wise. I feel like this was a little bit weaker than the first story. The first story, material and content wise, it was far like a better package compared to this one. And also, I feel like Mannequins were just shoehorned in, because yeah, they do mention about John being a rich man, flying around. It makes sense kind of sort of for him to be in the mall, but not using casino in the mall. Why would there be a casino in the mall? I'm just saying to play on of his characteristic traits, or maybe make his character around where it would make sense for him to be ended up in the mall. I've said the same thing for Sarah and Gertrude as well. Why were they in hotel? It made no sense. It would make more sense if John and Thomas had ended up in the hotel. Where would there be a monkey? Where there would be a casino and whatnot? It would make sense for them. But for Sarah and Gertrude, just because Gertrude characteristic wise fits with the monstrous side of the monkeys, I think it was a bit weak. So both sections, Nightmare Realms in and of themselves were phenomenal. Stories in themselves had a great summary, but I think it's a mismatch on either side when you connect these characters with their nightmare realms. I feel like it would have made more sense if the nightmares and the nightmare realms, they ended up kind of were connected. So Sarah, Gertrude, John, and other, well, at this point we can only say John because Thomas is dead, or Maria in this case, they would go to the nightmares that actually are their nightmares, right? If you know what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, that was my take on both of these stories. I feel like the first one resonated with me far more. I feel like Sarah's characters was written perfectly. John's was also, but the circumstances written around him kind of sort of were all over the place. In the first story, again, the same thing with Baker. That made no sense. Why was he so harsh? That was never given an explanation. It was just there for the shock value. Here, Valdez was never actually built up as a character. He was just there. And for the final few chapters, I want to mention that the story was literally right there. Valdez's father, John's father, they both kind of sort of look up, but also not really to their fathers. They could have easily exploited that, used that in the story where they would both kind of sort of connect on this one portion point. They didn't mention that. Valdez only mentioned twice in the whole story that you have a father. That's it. In one conversation, on a single page, in one line of dialogue. That's it. If you're gonna do the whole big reveal that Valdez's father was gonna turn on his son and the whole compound for his own freedom, wouldn't you want to build that up a little more? If we can go for the first story, 24 chapters, why this one had to be short? Why was this only 19 chapters? Maybe we could have added 6 to 7 more chapters where they would build up Valdez's father, make him connect with John, and because, you know, John has his own father that he tries to look for, and maybe Valdez and they team up as they try to go back and forth between Valdez's father taking over, snitching on his own son, maybe John helping Valdez escape. I don't know. There could have been a lot of paths, but I feel like in both stories, the tying together of everything, of all the pieces, this one was a little bit weak. Some of these things made no sense whatsoever, like I've just mentioned. These are at the top of my head. I've literally just finished the book, and so these are the things that are at the top of my head. Other than that, the Nightmare Realms, I think Nightmare Realms are handled well. Malak's character is the most consistent. After that, I would say it was Sarah. Like, Rebecca's character was all over the place. Again, these are throwaway characters, I know, but then again, like, it's a book. Unlike games and whatnot where they would be throwaway characters, you wouldn't look past them. I feel like we could have done a little bit more with these side characters, especially at least Rebecca and Matilda. They made sense. Here, Maria, they didn't build her up. It wasn't strong. The foundations were never there to begin with Pedro, Julio. They didn't even do anything with Pedro and Julio. We never had one-on-one against Julio. We never had one-on-one against Pedro. They never used these characters. They were just there. And at the end, Xavier with the whole monster centipede. Again, I said Nightmare Realms on their own, they stand very well. But when connected with the real world, when connected with our characters, their own nightmares and their own struggles, I don't know. It's a mishap in my humble personal opinion. So this book is far from perfect. The stories are far from perfect, but the first story at least holds up very well. And I've actually connected with Sarah, Matilda, Gertrude, Freak that woman far more because we actually went into their personal lives, whereas the second story was just trying to set up something. It was trying to set up the next thing, whereas this first story took its time to build up these characters, then it built up the things around them, then it built up their relationship, and then it started to pay off when the events starts to happen. Like Peter in the other barn, that was where I started to see some cracks in the writing in terms of how they're proceeding and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know the hype around the second story. I feel like the first story is far stronger, far better package. It works well as a dark deception story because it goes far deep into the hopelessness, the desperate situation, and all these other stuff, the guilt, the shame. It works well. Whereas the second story, it's all over the place, but a good story nonetheless. So if there's ever a dark deception, like I said before, a dark deception movie, TV show, this would work. You might have noticed that I'm actually staying away from talking about Mannequins. It's a big reveal of the book because it's going to be something separate. But I will say one thing about here. It is crazy. It is crazy. The book paints a picture of how the mall is going to look like, how the second and third zones are going to look like, how Puppet King character is going to be, how this monster centipede, it's huge that this monster centipede can actually talk. It has its own characters because that is one major point that Vince mentioned, that these chapter 5 characters, the monsters, they have their own personality and we've seen them in action. Let's see how they translate from just a story in the book
to actual characters in video game in scenes. With that being said, I will rate this book maybe a 7.5. I'm actually struggling between 7.5 and 8, but I would say a solid 8 out of 10. Both Vince and Kelly, they showed that they're capable of big, so I hope that in the next book they polish these things even further, and when we do get the next book, it's gonna be far more tied together, make sense, and actually connect the real world with Nightmare Realms. Anyways, also one final thing, I want to throw a prediction. I feel like one of the mannequins could be John, and I'm gonna leave the question to you guys. Do you think that one of the mannequins that Vince keep talking about, favorite mannequins and whatnot, could be John? Could we find John as one of the mannequins, or maybe find one of his bodies, or something related to that in chapter 5? Is it possible? Let me know down in the comments below. Ladies and gentlemen, that would do it. I've stayed completely away from theories because it are already 2 hours long, ladies and gentlemen. God help me with this editing. 100k, this deserves Susu, and this deserves like. Come on, man. So shout out to y'all, shout out to Mr. for providing me the illustrations digitally HD so I can use them. Shout out to Igor Undi for the thumbnail, and of course shout out to Vince and Kelly for this great book, and shout out to y'all for watching this video. Susu for more 100k. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and peace.